Wow, Neil Armstrong. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay and with all solar winds.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is flat.
Globebusters taking over. Bye bye moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Globebusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Get the shovel for the spice hubble. Piecing up the puzzle. Need a burst your bubble. Evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down and be humble. Got the ball, you better fumble. You'll get mad, cause at this fight I'm Bob's your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Pops at the president, Jaren got the evidence. Arrow slaying Jesuits and Zach Sharkham is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your residence is heavens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
Globebusters taking over. Bye bye moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Globebusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
Yes, indeed. It is as simple as that. Hello, everybody. You have reached Globebusters Tech. Today's show is called Why Are They Really Hiding the Flat Earth? I'm your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we have a great guest with us today that's going to kind of explore that topic with us. And we may go to some places where some people are not comfortable with, and some people may think it's not a good thing. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of coming after this topic in a way that I'm just going to ask some questions straight up, because I think that's one of the most important things that we can talk about right now is what really does happen when we die. And why? What does that have to do with why they're hiding flat Earth? Does it have anything to do with why they're hiding flat Earth? Personally, I think it does. Other people do not. And so I want to take in a bunch of different kind of viewpoints on that. And we have a very special guest with us today. Many of you know him from Spacebusters. And he is with us today, and his name is Steve. And Steve, welcome to Globebusters.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me again, Bob. Hello, Cammie, Zach, Kyle. I'm looking forward.
All right. Outstanding. Okay. So, all right. Let's see. I gotta make that sure. I'm turning all my buttons here that I have right. Okay. So let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel. I just texted Austin to see if we wanted to join or not. It was kind of a last minute thing, so I'm not sure if he does or not. But if not, that's okay. So let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel for today. Next up, we have Mr. Kyle Adams from the Flat Earth Institute of Science. How you doing today, Kyle?
Doing fantastic.
Outstanding. Is this a topic that you have thought about with any depth at all?
Absolutely, yeah. This is one that continually gets brought up all the time. Is why would they lie?
Well, yeah.
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 Normally I just point at the money and say, "Hey, look at that $26 billion budget they're getting next year for NASA and all that." And but I definitely like to look at a little deeper than that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so much more to this, in my opinion. Of course, as many of you know, I've been studying conspiracy theories. Well, I have been studying conspiracy theories for at least 30 years before I found flat Earth. And during that time, I was very interested in consciousness study, what happened, life after death when people have near-death experiences, why people, seem to see and hear grids if they're like doing like astro traveling or dreaming. Me personally, my whole life, I have had a very, very much recurring dream, which is just bizarre. And that is that.
I like dreams.
Yeah.
I gotta hear this.
Yeah. I mean, I can fly, right? And that's not a big deal. Everybody can fly in their dreams, right? Well, not everybody, but I certainly can. And it's an amazing experience. But the thing that really freaks me out when I do this is I'm always looking up, being very cautious, because what I see above me in these dreams are power lines, like public service, utility power lines, right? And obviously you don't want to get caught up in those, or they're an electrical shock. So, that always kind of freaked me out. And I never really understood that until a lot more recently.
I got tingles. I can tell you all kinds of stuff about that right now.
Awesome.
So,
well, hang on to it.
I love looking at symbols and interpreting dreams. And so, yeah, I can kind of dabble with this, and I would love to hear what you have to say. What you think about it? Well,
one of the things I am doing is I'm playing a video by somebody that I recently discovered not too long ago, who is, she kind of goes along the same line of study as Wes Penry's work. She's called Free at Last. However, she does disagree with Wes Penry in a lot of key points. But what's going on? But these are some of the people, her, like Robert Morningside, Morningstar or Morningside, I can't remember which one it is. And then there's like the California Institute of Consciousness Sciences. A lot of people may not know these places exist, or Robert Monroe Institute, stuff like that. What happens in the astral, or even, Jeranism just had a couple of guests on last night, Sasha and some other guy who were doing remote viewing experiences, or experiments. And what I think is interesting about that is when I was following Dean Radin on those type of experiments, it was absolutely astounding what they could come up with. They would literally have remote viewers focus in on a very specific space or an object, and then they would set up all kinds of sensors around it, and they would find that temperature would go up, electric field would go up, and all things would change around it. I mean, it was just really freaky. And this is all documented very well by Dean Radin at Princeton. So this is not woo-woo stuff, and it's not dealing with the satanic or anything like that. It's dealing with, the real world. Now, some people may choose to see this as you're messing with demons, and I can't say I entirely disagree, right? But it's something that is out there, and I think, just out of the curiosity of most people, it really does intrigue me about this. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So next up, let's go ahead and go over to Zach really quick. Next up, we have Good Times for All, Zachary Zabala. Zach, how you doing today?
Hey, Bob, doing great. Yeah, it's been a while since I've talked to Steve, so it's awesome having him back on. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed that Ross didn't make it, but that's okay. We'll get him on next time. Ross is a great guy, and I really like the Hard Rain song that you and Ross did. That is just such a killer song you did, Steve.
Yeah, unfortunately, he left on vacation just this morning with his young daughter. They're actually, he's going to the island we're looking to buy our Apocalypse bug out on.
So, really? Cool.
He's out scouting. Yeah. Otherwise, he would have been on. But I told him if he can get his hands on a computer to call in.
Yeah, that would be great.
He comes, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go to last but certainly not least. It should have been ladies first, but you know me, I'm bad manners. I'm bad about this. my wife, Aisling717, Cammie. How you doing, Cammie?
Oh, doing really good this afternoon. This is the timeless question, the important question, the one that I think about all of the time. And again, it's that when you break down everything, it takes you there. I had to jump in on the show today. Steve is one of my favorites, so I'm excited for this one. Let's get going.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, one thing I do want to announce is that I was watching some videos last night, and one of the videos I pulled up was on relative density disequilibrium. And guys, I mean, this really needs to stop. And I really need to address that, but we're going to do that probably at the end of the show if we have time. Because I told the creator of that video that I would address it just for him, because it really is something that he had entirely wrong. And I think when people misunderstand what's going on with this whole relative density disequilibrium and how they're tying it into so-called gravity, it's a mistake. So again, we've covered it before. We'll cover it again. We'll probably have to cover it a million times, but that's going to be put off to the end of the show. So if you are waiting for that, then, you know, it'll be at the end of the show, or it may even be Sunday. It depends on how this goes. So just a note to let everybody know that. So all right. So as I was saying earlier, you know, I've always had this really crazy recurring dream about being able to fly and always being afraid of these electrical wires. And I've always, you know, in my studies, and as I studied different subjects, like on remote viewing and consciousness level studies, I kept coming across people talking about the grid, right? What the hell is the grid? Well, I always kind of interpreted it, at least recently, as the firmament, but I think there's probably even a little bit more to it than that. I had, you know, Cammie had a best friend who did astral traveling a lot. And she was always talking about how they'd go up there and they'd be doing battle in the grid. And, you know, at the time I just thought, this is crazy. You know, this is really nuts. Why, what is this grid thing? And why, you know, why are we locked in? And,
sounds like something from Tron.
Yeah, exactly. It looks kind of like something from Tron. And they were actually showing kind of pictures of it. Back here, a lot of people were talking about it, and you can see, sometimes you can see it actually coming through on manifestations in the sky. Obviously those are chemtrails, but sometimes the more raw form of the grid comes through. And so I was wondering, well, what the heck is this? Then of course I found out about flat Earth. And right about the same time I was doing this, I was also studying the works of Wes Penry. And, you know, he talked about, well, the reason for the grid is because this is essentially a prison planet. And it's like, wow, that's kind of a disturbing thought, right? So why would we be, you know, kept here in a prison planet? What would be the purpose of that? And how does this all fit into this, you know, grand scheme of things? So ultimately,
I've seen clouds do that crisscross formation that you're talking about. You're making like a grid shape. And I just looked at that. I was like, wow, I've only seen it once, but it just really stood out to me as it's like, you know, that's a sign that there is a creator. That you know, you don't get crisscrossing clouds like that just by chance. And that was
agreed.
My whole view of it.
There's absolutely a creator, and this is absolutely a created construct. I guess the question that is left with me, that I've left myself asking, is that creator benevolent? And that's where I'm at. Is that creator benevolent? Are we prisoners or are we special? So, I'm going to throw this out to our guest of honor first and say, Steve, what do you think goes on after death? And you know, well, and let's expand after that, after you tell me that, because you may not think any of this is valid at all. But what do you think happens when we leave this earth?
Well, yeah, like everyone else, I don't have a knowledge or memory of that experience. I've never had a near-death experience, so I can't personally say. What I can say is I study, and I look at this I don't subscribe to a religion or any kind of philosophy or theosophy, but I study a lot of them. This is a very interesting question because if you look at, for instance, Christianity, Judaism, these come from a patriarchal, like a king-based thing, that there's a God, he's the king, he's in charge, and he loves you, but he's angry and all this, you know. Then there's the Eastern philosophy that says it's an illusion that there even is a you to die and come back or reincarnate or go to heaven or whatever you think happens, that they say we're all Brahma, and everything that wakes up out of the womb and is alive is having this experience that I'm the center, this is it. But the ant is having that experience, the newborn human baby, you know, everything's having that experience. And their philosophy is that when you die, the next thing that wakes up is the same as when you woke up, when you were born. You don't remember what happened before, but you're having the I'm it experience, if that makes sense. So in their thing, we're all Brahma playing a game of hide and seek from ourselves to play, that the universe is not mean and angry or God or this flat earth, that we're in a place of play and creation. So this is the first problem with this whole argument is, do you want to approach it from an Eastern philosophy or a Western philosophy? You'll meet a lot of people who aren't flat earthers who say, I'm a star seed who came here from the Pleiades, right?
Right, yeah, Barbara Masiniak. Yeah.
And that's the problem. The Western philosophy and a lot of the New Age philosophy have this idea that like this realm, flat earth, is like a tree, and we don't belong here. We're ants who invaded, or we've been sent here to be punished, like, you know, ants coming into a tree. The Eastern philosophy says, no, you're an acorn growing out of this tree. You didn't come to this flat earth. You came out of it, just like grass. So the hard part to have this conversation is, which side do you want to talk about? We could talk about both, you know, because these are two completely different ways to approach this. So the question is there a you? Now, I know what you're saying because I have friends who astral travel. There are lots of stories out there about people who have what you call a near-death experience where they come back. And I think later we should get into the works of Vita Austin. I don't know if you've run into her and her work with water, freezing water and talking to it and asking it questions. Have you heard of her?
No, that sounds kind of like Masaru Emoto, but different.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, you know, there's a thing they always, speaking of density, what you were saying, we're always told that our body is 70% water, but that's not true. Actually, we're starting to find out our body is more like over 90% water, but the weight and density of the 10% makes up 30% of our total weight and mass, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So we're 90% water, but the 10% that isn't weighs a lot more than the water. And the work she's doing is crazy because what she started doing, DNA is a theory. I don't know if people know this, but Crick and Watson made this all up. It's the water around DNA, not DNA itself, that's forming what they're trying to call this double helix, if that's even true. They've never seen that in real life. So Vita, what she did is she started talking to water and then freezing it and then taking it out of the freezer. There's a little more to it. There's a method she uses. But she said, do you know who I am? And she took it out and it wrote her initials, VA, just the way she signs her autograph.
Oh, wow.
She started showing it pictures and asking it questions, and it started responding. In fact, I can send you a link if you want to pull this up so people can see some of what she's doing.
Okay.
And I do that how? I guess I put
just drop it in the chat or on the Skype chat.
Okay, so if you open that up, and then there's some, you can you'll see some examples and show. Yeah, there you go. And if you scroll down, I think you can say show more under each of those blocks. And yes, so you can see show more. You can see more before. Oh yeah, all of and the other one too.
Yeah,
so
okay.
what she's doing, sometimes she lays a picture over the water or puts a water petri dish over a picture and freezes it, and then a picture comes. Sometimes it draws the same thing, but a totally different picture. She asks it questions, she talks to it, and it responds to her in its own kind of way.
Wow.
Now, this gets into what Emoto was talking about, when he was saying mean things to water, or put labels on plants with water saying, I love you, I hate you, and the plants would die or the rice would go bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to start thinking we're 90% water. Now, when all these people are saying, there's a lot of books that have like 20 proofs for reincarnation. This girl was born and she drove by her house and remembered that she grew up there, or one kid identified his murderer in a past life, right? We've all heard a lot of these stories. The question is that me, or is it the water inside me that holds that memory, and the person occupying that body has tapped into their water, their infinite etheric water consciousness? This starts getting into the ether, like you were saying, when Rupert Sheldrake did those experiments with your dogs where they had these atomic clocks set to each other, and then you'd go to work 50 miles away, and then you didn't know when you were going to get a call, but as soon as it was time to come home, the experimenters would call you, and immediately their dogs would jump up from a nap,
Yes.
run to the window when they got the phone call immediately.
Yes.
No way. So we're talking about the ether with that, but the question is it the water, not the ether, or both? Or is ether and water two different forms of the same thing? Now this starts getting interesting. Are people having a past life recall, memory experience, or are they tapping into the water or the ether or both? And this is what's giving them the memory they desire, because they are consciously asking questions to the water.
Mm-hmm. And acting as a co-creator. And by the way, Steve, this is extraordinary. So she asks the water a question, or shows them a picture, right? Like what we're seeing, and the water is actually responding with these.
Yes, it talks to her.
Unbelievable.
She'll think about someone getting married or a friend or whatever, and then it'll draw her a wedding ring. And it does it in its own kind of creative way every time. Yeah, you can see it. And on that website, when you go to videos, she has a film which is incredible. Everyone should watch this, called The Secret Intelligence of Water. And it's just mind-blowing. So this is a brand new cutting-edge science that is going to change our understanding of everything. So right now we're sort of having caveman conversations, because there are new sciences coming out that might obsolete everything we even say tonight.
Boy, I guess this is absolutely astounding. I've never seen anything like this. And of course, I have heard the theory advanced that ether and water are one and the same thing. And I can't dismiss that, that's entirely possible. But it just seems like this medium is this multi-textured material that is able to change or manifest. I think that it has to do with cymatic energies going into it. But, that's because that's how I think creation is made anyway. But I just don't know what to think about this. This is incredible. Look at that 4. That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
this is happening when she is freezing it, right? It's an ice response. Is that correct?
That's
These are all frozen. Now, I want everybody to remember that when things shift over, again, when water shifts to ice, it's, again, a snowflake in that. Anytime you go into a solid, that's what defines a solid. A solid is the organization and the intelligence, again, the architecture to the solid itself, the minerals. So you have, again, diamonds and different crystals that grow into the perfect geometry. With the water going into it, usually when you freeze it into ice, if it freezes naturally and slowly, you get the beautiful snowflake. You freeze it in your freezer just as ice with no care to it. It stays. It's frozen out of sequence. It's called amorphous, actually. It's frozen where it has no organization. But this she's doing a slow freezing and letting it intellectually organize.
Yeah, and what's incredible is what Bob was saying with the grid. If you look at the picture under the 4, and then there's the black woman underneath and then next to her. So what she does there is she'll take that picture of that woman and she'll put a petri dish with the water on top of that. Then she'll freeze it. But the funny thing is the water draws that woman, but it draws it its own special way. You notice it's not a carbon copy. it's doing art. Now you got to start thinking where artists are getting their inspiration. And like you're saying, Cammy, when a snowflake freezes, it's always in these perfect geometry grids. Well, that has no conscious intention of ours in it. That just has what the universe, the Earth,
Right.
Earth. So that might be that the grid is what's programming the crystalline structure of water and crystals and snow. But as soon as you put some intention into it, you start getting what she's getting. You can see it drew its own 4. That doesn't look like her 4. See how her 4 overhangs, like her 4 sticks out on the right side? But that 4 doesn't. It stops at the stem. See that?
No, it stylizes and takes on its own artistic rigging on everything, especially the face. The face is fabulous. You go into the next one and it turns it into royalty. Look at this. Look at the headdress. Look at the headdress and the eaves coming down on this. This is history. This is a memory. It's a response. It's like giving a different showing in a different era or a different time. Just fabulous. I know Zach in the show chat too on our show did the rice experiment. The Too Nice for Rice is his nickname because Zach could not make himself yell at the rice to turn it brown when the rice experiment, don't you, Steve?
I did them on flowers actually once because my ex-wife didn't believe that stuff. She said it was voodoo. So I went to the kiosk, the mall, and they had these. You could get these little. I can't remember. They were lilies or something. They were on sale because they were almost on the way out. So I bought one batch that came together. I put one in one vase, one in the other. Same water from the sink, and I just wrote the word love with a marker on a sticker on one and hate on the other. I didn't even say I love you, just love hate. And the one that had the love stayed, it bloomed, they opened, and they stayed for 3 weeks. And the other one was dead within 4 days. So it is true. Now, I don't know if that's you. Every time you look at that label and read it, you start, like you're saying, Bob, maybe you're sending intention by thought, by seeing that. I didn't do an experiment where you put them in a room and don't look at them for 3 weeks and see if it still happens. I don't know if it's even the intention you had when you wrote the word with the marker on the sticker. You know what I mean? I don't know what's making that happen. I can just tell you that just like the Zach's rice experiment, mine had the same results.
The rice is still white.
His rice is still white,
There's no mold on my rice. I still have it. All 3 of them.
It's just too nice. That's all.
They did it orally where they were talking to the rice instead of writing things down. They were giving it oral messages, and everybody else was managed to turn their rice brown and dirty. But Zach was like, the rice never did anything to me. How can I yell at it? And appreciate, obviously the rice appreciated that attitude because it's still pristine after all of these years. These pictures are breathtaking. The hands right there that I'm looking at. Oops, I'm on different screens. You had it up before. The sun's hands, where it does the multiples.
I thought you'd love this, Cammy, as a crystal person.
You're right. As a crystal person, I'm seeing creation, and you're right. I couldn't love anything more. I'm going to be quiet and keep on listening to you, Steve. This is amazing.
Well, I'd like to hear.
Beautiful.
Hearing what the panel thinks about this. I'd like to hear what everyone's thoughts are. If they have any other thoughts on what's going on here.
Well,
yeah.
Go for it.
I've got to say that I know. Whenever I'm trying to figure something out, how to test something or how to set up a test, it's weird. I'll go into the shower and I will come out with the answer. Every time I have water pouring over my body like that.
Same thing with me, Zach. Exactly the same thing. You take a shower, it just comes to you. It's weird.
It's weird.
And I walk to the river. I walk to the river to get the thoughts and touch the water. You do. And dreams, and through dreams. It's amazing.
I guess you never really think about, the water and the influence that it has, but when you're around it, for whatever reason, water seems to bring that state of mind that is either comforting or relaxing or something, but it allows you to communicate not only with the outside world or the ether, but with yourself as well. And I find that really interesting because I never, like I said, other than Dr. Emoto's experiments, I never really thought about it, and I still find his experiments amazing, the way that the ice crystals respond to his messages. that, I mean, that tells me that there's an intelligence there that is absolutely aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and then when you think we're 90% water, you got to start asking where our intelligence comes from, our artistic ability, creativity, artists and writing and creativity, our right brain. What
Our
is this?
dreams.
Yeah, but where are these dreams coming from? Are they the water? You know what I mean?
I've got all kinds of things going through my mind right now. I'm just like thinking about like maybe there's a deeper reason as to just why we pee. Okay, now I want to suddenly start freezing my pee and see what happens. And at the same time, I'm also thinking about Sheol. It's this chasm underground, right? And that's kind of ends up. I'm kind of thinking of a Sheol aquifer connection or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of just one of the things that are going through my mind right now.
Well, yeah, now you're getting into like the Tartarian people who are researching, were those star forts there to structurize water into living water to, for longevity, for eternal life, basically fountain of youth type of stuff, which is also your urine. If they used to drink their urine because it's total plasma and has the antidote for every kind of poison. And so, yeah, there's a lot more to this. In fact, Dr. Kaufman, Andy had just, I don't know where, I can't remember the guy's name. He sent me this guy who was talking about coherent water and incoherent water. And he was showing how there's one day a year where, like, in a certain location on the realm, when the wandering stars, so to speak, I won't call them planets, but when the 7 wandering stars line up, the water in the river in India, I think it's the Ganges, it becomes coherent. It all lines up in a row. And the one day that happens to happen is the day they've all been going down on holiday at the Diwali and diving and swimming in that river for healing. And it just turned out when this guy did the calculations, that was the day.
Wow.
And it's just crazy. I'll see if I can find it. I can't remember this guy's name, but it's just like, what? So, there's a lot of people saying that was kind of the point of all these Tartarian cathedrals and star forts, was that they were actually structuring water, and then they built all those canals to send them out. So that technology was not so much about electricity as it was restructuring water.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, and that's one of the things that, my John Ellis water machine does, that it claims, it's like they're terribly expensive. It's like a $3,000 water distiller, or $2,000 or $3,000. But its claim to fame is that when it is ionizing the water or boiling it, it subjects it to a full intensity, full spectrum light that, basically energizes it, and supposedly changes the bond angles of the water itself. At least that's what John Ellis claims. And of course, it's amazing, the difference that a good glass of water can make. But I'm sure a lot of you know that. But when you start energizing things like water and really working with it, I think that it can be much more powerful than anybody had any idea. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that guy I was talking about, if people want to find him, his name is Dolph, what is it? Dolph, D-O-L-F, Zantingi, or Zantingi, Z-A-N-T-I-N-G-E. And he's got a presentation called Water, Health, and Our Future. So people might want to look that up, where he's talking about all this. Really fascinating. But then, yeah, so this gets us back to, what happens after you die? Is there a you, or is it like the Eastern philosophy, where that's what their version of reincarnation would be, is, you die, and then the next thing that opens its eyes, actually everything that opens its eyes, is having the same experience you are. And this is why they always say, like, you're not you against the outside world. You're like words on paper. You don't exist without each other. Without the paper, the words don't exist or mean anything. Or the 3 sides of a coin, the front, back, and the edge.
Right.
it's a very weird philosophy that we're all fighting this thing as if the world's out to get us. And this is kind of what Western religion is with the patriarchy. It's based on kings. God is out to get you, but he loves you, but he's vengeful, and he's watching you, and just like the king, and you better kneel before him, just like you did before the king, so that you couldn't run up and chop his head off. A lot of the Western religions come out of this patriarchy idealism, I guess you could say. So the real question is there a you as we think in the West, or is that an illusion? And when you die, you reincarnate eternally because everything is having the same I'm it experience. It's really hard to wrap your head around such a concept.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't subscribe to it or not. It's one of my favorites of the theosophies.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that always bothered me about the, like the Christian religions, or really not just Christian religion, but most religions, it seems like the goal is to, if you're a good boy and you do everything right and you repent, etc., then you will be able to come back and live under your God's rule right here on earth eternally, type of stuff. And Christianity isn't the only philosophy that has that. And I always thought, well, certainly there's more to the universe than just this world. Why is it that they want you to keep on coming back to this earth? Then you look at other things like, like Zecharia Sitchin's work with translating some of the Anunnaki texts, right? Where he's saying basically, well, humans were created to be slaves, basically to mine gold, right? For these kind of like reptilian overlords. And oh my God, is there a lot of information on reptilian overlords? And some of it is really quite compelling, I have to say. Some of it, some of it you can see these entities physically changing. Like they've shot video of them, and you can see them changing into these like reptilian type of entities. So it just seems like we have so many different possibilities. Christianity wants to bring you back under, and walking with Jesus and staying with Jesus in all eternity here, or whatever religion you're going with. If you're New Age, it's the idea is well, you've made a commitment to be here to help bring all the others out of this slumber, right? And to wake up the rest of humanity. But it's always seems to be pointing back to getting you to come back here. Now, one of the people, like this woman right here that's on the screen, and several others, they talk about what happens, in some of these institutions that are studying this, like West Penry or the California Institute. I can't remember the name of the California scientific lab that does this. But they say that when you die, you go into what's called a BLA, or a between lives area. And at that point, that's where you're met with a familiar family. And, they always try to get you to come into the light with them. And of course, this is where the whole idea of don't go into the light because that leads you into a trap coming back here, yada, 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 right? But again, why is that such a prevalent thing? If religion is truly the way to freedom, then why does it sound so much like every other thing, every other, offer out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if like some of the things you got to ask just rationally is, if a baby died at birth, well, what happens to that? It can't even think or understand the concept you just said. It wouldn't know any family from before that's coming back to get it. It doesn't even think yet. You know what I mean? So you have to sometimes take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. I know that story is repeated over and over again, but again, where does that story come from? How much of it is cultural repetition? Where have you heard that before? I always take a lot of these people with a grain of salt, especially if they have an affiliation. No offense to any Christians out there, but if they have an affiliation with the church, they have a little bit of motivation to say, I died and went to hell and came back and I'm here to tell you about it. I'm not saying they did or didn't. I'm just saying I'm always very cautious if there could be an ulterior motive, like that helps their religious affiliation or whatever, you know. I'm not saying it does or doesn't happen because I've never had that experience, so I don't know. So that's where I'm coming from, you know. To me, there's something to this reptilian thing as well. And to me, I think if the grays are real, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest, I think they live under us. I don't think they're extraterrestrial. I think they're terrestrial.
I agree. Yep.
They seem to be the only other creature besides us that can seem to have the kind of thoughts we're having right now. Like a dog doesn't even think or talk about this stuff we're talking about right now. They're just a dog. And what they don't give a crap what happens when they die. They don't even, you know what I mean? I know they're aware of death because we know cows start crying in the slaughterhouse when they figure out what just happened to the cows in front of them. They totally get what's about to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not sitting there going, I wonder what happens next. Do I go up into cow heaven with cow Jesus? And, you know, my problem with heaven is that's pretty boring. Like you know, one of the things I like about the Eastern philosophy is the whole reason you would die and just everything keeps incarnating as a new kind of formation and experience is because the philosopher Alan Watts used to say this. He said, if you could go to sleep and dream anything you wanted every night, anything you wanted to happen to you, you could just have it happen to your will, you know. You can go on adventures and have orgies and be the king of this and nights and whatever. He said, how long would it be until you were completely bored, you know, after 3 years of getting everything you want always? At some point, the one thing you would want is to not know what was going to happen next. You'd get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen is where we are right now. You would wake up exactly like this, going, what the hell is going on? And what's going to happen next? Where am I? You know,
right.
And the Easterners call this that. They say Brahma is playing a game where he's forgotten who he is, and we're all Brahma, you, me, the dog, the ants. And he's playing this game because it's more fun than if you're the creator. And he's not the creator, by the way. He's the second. He's like runs the show. If the creator is unity, you know, if all is a one singularity, the one thing you don't have in the singularity is duality or a trilogy. And you can't have experience because you know everything all the time. So the only thing that would get you off is amnesia. You know, and then that's where we get this idea of trying to get out of the karmic loop and find our way back to the singularity as if we're lost here, kind of, you know. But
or possibly, Steve, or possibly free choice too. I mean, you know, I thought about this, and I sorry for interrupting you, but one of the things that really struck me hard in this is, you know, I've asked myself that question: if I could come back and, you know, do anything I wanted to do, of course, yeah, most people would say, yeah, I want to be rich, I want to be good looking, I want to be popular with all the women or opposite sex or whatever. I want to be famous. I want to be this, that, and the other thing, yada, 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 right? But after a while, I mean, that's got to get boring, right? That's got to get tedious. It's got to get old and, you know, just not desirable anymore. And one time when Chris and Cherie Gio were on the show, we were talking about that and other possibilities, you know, for what you could do coming into this life. And so I was reminded of a time that we were in Hawaii. Cammie and I were in Hawaii, and we were there with a bunch of friends, and we were actually on a boat going over to Lanai to go scuba diving, right? And while we were on that boat, there was this family there, right? There was like the mom and dad and brother, sister, and then one of the girls who looked like she was, I don't know, 18, 20 years old, something like that, was like completely, you know, paralyzed, couldn't really talk, you know, nothing like that. And of course, the family was doing everything for her and, you know, putting her in the water and making sure she had a good time. And initially I was thinking to myself, wow, what a drag that must be to be such a burden, right, on everybody else, right? And how it must be so awful for her. And then it just kind of occurred to me, it's like, wow, you know what? But on the other hand, what must it be like to have somebody love you, or so many people love you so much that they're willing to do this, and everything that they do for you out of the love for you. and all this stuff. And it really touched me, right? I mean, I was like, whoa, that is incredible. So then I thought, well, maybe when she came back to Earth, she was one of those people that had experienced all those other, utopian type of existences, and said, okay, well, this time I'm going to come back and be basically completely disabled, barely able to function, whatever, and see what it is like to have this type of existence and feel this kind of love. And it occurred to me at that point that that's probably the most special, incredible type of love that anybody could ever have. There's people that are in like India, and India is kind of a shithole for a country, right? The living conditions are horrible. Everything's terrible there, right? But what's amazing is the community, the sense of community is off the charts there. I mean, people help each other. They love each other. People are generally happy. And it's like, so, not necessarily does the utopian lifestyle make a person a happy person, right? There's much, much more to it. There's much more depth to it.
And you can see the opposite of that too when you look. A lot of these Hollywood people and Illuminati types say, "I'm famous and it sucks. I got everything I wanted and I'm not happy." And then you start looking at people like these Bill Gates and these philanthropists, quote unquote philanthropists. Well, they've got everything they want. They've got all the money they ever want. They can buy everything they have, and they're bored. And then the only thing they get off on is starting to get away with doing this crazy crap they're all up to, eugenics and weird shit. This is what's getting them off because they found out all the other stuff doesn't get you off. Just like I'm saying, after a while, when you get everything you want, it's not enough. Even that a girl you were talking about. At some point, she's going to want someone to hate her just to see what it's like for someone to call her a cripple.
Or to have something bad happen to her, And this goes into a part of the conversation that I'm not going to repeat again. But I said, what if they came into and they were a victim of some heinous type of crime, right? Just to see what it felt like, right? I mean, literally, when you understand that you can obtain any experience, then it kind of gives you a lot of options, right? So, and I can't say that I would have to say that any one of them is right or wrong. It all depends on your perspective of how that goes down, right? So,
I'm going to throw in another one if I can.
Go on.
Go ahead. Okay. Instead of the me, and the my experiences, what if this place is more like a playpen? In a way, in other words, like when you put your child in a playpen so they can do no damage to themselves or get into harm because there's something dangerous or whatever, a learning land with safe little things and experimenting a little bit on their own. But you're putting everything in the context of me. But is there a possibility that it could be a little bit of everything that these souls that we're having a density test? Like if this is an electromagnetic grid, could this be again to ascend or to do this? When you look at any of the prayers in the different religions, I'll throw them out.
You mean like having the soul lighter than a feather type thing?
The soul lighter than a feather, and again learning the lesson. So when they say they take religion and they make it so if you just ask for forgiveness, that's it. That's all you need, and that's all you need to ascend. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just a couple of words said casually. On forgiveness, I would almost think you would need to learn your lesson, actually atone and learn from it. What if on eternity it was tried before? What if we're too dangerous and too out of control? And living in these lives that we have here, we get to see how precious life really is. So in an eternal situation where you really could kill somebody off, with this possibility of living forever, you're really taking out a permanent life here. What if this is just a training ground in a way from a father or a mother that loves you, that says here are ways to witness everything and experience things. And at some point when you learn how precious life is and how to handle situations a little bit maturely, when your soul becomes lighter than a feather, when you can act out of love, you can ascend. And what if you reincarnate until you get it back? To when you say on the children and they have no choice, what about situations where you have, I think if your soul would have to be lighter than a feather to ascend, and remember, this is a free choice type of playground. So mistakes would be allowed to be made here because they're not permanent mistakes. They're not a permanent thing, but it's a learning experience. If you say, well, what about a child that was born and died right afterwards, or even stillborn, or that, well, that could be even the case of somebody that was really, really good, that took their life in sadness and suicide for like just all of the wrong reasons and needed time to regrasp and find love again, that they weren't, harmful. But I don't, things that would rule you out from it, again, maybe somebody that you just have to die in a little bit of a better place. So I could see where you could have situations, but you'd have like the situations to be able to harm and that too. So what if you had like a loving father looking over and saying you have to have free choice? I can't, taking away your free choice and controlling your brain would not be ideal, but you can't play with the eternal until you grow up. Just a possibility to throw out there.
I like that. One of the things I also think about, like, we're going on the Western philosophy that there is actually a you and you have a unique soul and you're not just part of, that you are running up the hill and not the hill is lifting you at the same time you're walking. But let's go with the idea that you do have a soul. And if the idea is that you're supposed to be learning, like you said, Cammie, in a playground, the one thing that never made sense to me is the idea of hell and eternal damnation, because what's the point of learning if you do something wrong and then you get punished forever and ever and you can't make up for the mistake? You know what I mean? So those two don't go hand in hand. You can't have both. You got to either it's not a learning experience, it's a walk on eggshells test from a God who hates you and is just waiting to throw you in prison for life, or it's the other way around and there can't be a hell if this is a learning experience. Otherwise, it just defeats the point of learning. What do you guys think about that?
I agree completely. Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Very much so. Wow.
I just don't like the idea of the big reset button. Okay, my life's over with. Time to push the reset button and start all over again. They're just kind of doing that over and over and over again. And yeah, I kind of becomes.
Well, what do you mean exactly?
So, Steve, okay,
Yep.
Can I answer on the Steve one? I'm sorry, I was unmuted on that one because I wanted to answer that one too, and he knows I did. Well, okay, on those situations, as a father, a lot of the times there are, or as a parent, there are gray areas. There are different things. As a parent, you see, so you have these souls here, and they say, like in Western philosophy, a certain people, when it's all over, will ascend. A certain people will fall asleep and have no memories, and a certain people will burn and die in hell type of thing and burn forever in hell. I don't believe the burn in hell when you look into the texts and everything that I've read. It's never been a majority or a simple thing to burn in hell. In other words, it's usually you just like in most of the Western religions, there's going to be almost a land where you fall asleep and that's it. You fall asleep and that's sin. When I've looked at the actual verbiage on it, not the way that it's stated in religion. But if you were a father, what if you were just saying, as far as eternity, you would think you would want these people to fall asleep. What if they get a soul so strong that it's like either release them or punish them? I don't know if maybe the punishment is having to stay here in the grid. Maybe again,
well, there's that idea that a lot of people
not
think
be
we're
able to do
in
that.
like hell or purgatory. There's a lot of people who think this place is like purgatory where we're at now.
It is, and I've heard that. Of course, you've read it. So there are a lot of different ways of looking at it. But I don't think, again, when we do the black and white answers, I don't think life usually works that clean cut when you look at your children. And it's like, it's not only did they commit the sin, but it's like, what was their intention between committing the sin? You know what I mean? There's that intention again behind it. So I think your punishment might be reserved for intentions, whereas like our learning playground is a lot of learning about the unintended consequences our actions may have. So
as I see it, there's a lot more choices involved. It's not just there's a lot more choices involved. Here are this is my house. These are my standards. If you want to live by my standards, you guys can make some choices. But if you don't want to live with me, that's totally fine. You know, there's the door. You don't have to live with me if you want. And so the utter rejection of everything of God himself and, you know, everything that he represents. I want nothing to do with you. You know, I want to be as far away from you as possible. I'm making a choice there to go out and put myself into outer darkness. And I think that's kind of the day of judgment there, is saying, hey, I understand you. You do not want to be with me. And so I'm going to accept, you know, what you really want. I think if someone really is put in a position that they don't want to be in, that right there is, it's kind of the worst thing ever. And I don't think God is going to force anyone to be in heaven against their will.
There you
So
go.
and I think when someone gets conflicted, when someone gets conflicted where, oh, they want things to be a certain way, but they're not willing to do anything to get it. That right there is hell. If you know what I mean, when I'm saying that.
Yeah, it's like a state of mind almost that can change. This is the other one. I don't even know if there's time to go into this tonight, but when you start looking into theosophy and Freemasonry and esoteric biochemistry, and what there's another language the Bible's talking about, and it's not literal. It's using numerology and biochemistry talk, and this gets into the flat Earth. The corpuscles, which are your cells, we have two different kinds. We have the ones just that make up your body, your blood cells, tissue cells and bones. And then you have your regenerative ones, the sperm and the ovum. There's a whole science talking about you can have eternal life, but they don't mean forever and ever after you die. They mean living. They mean there's a way that if you keep your cells functioning properly and you keep your mind from bad thoughts and bad energy and vibrations, and you have the right mineral cell salts and the right energy and the right air and water, you can literally live to 1,000, which is like eternal life. You do have to say in the Bible, we know Jonah didn't get eaten by a whale. Like, these are stories, these are metaphors. But why is it those Bible characters are 1,000, then 700, 900, 600, right? Isn't it kind of weird that why didn't they make them 70? And it's as if the people who wrote that book knew that was totally normal to live to. They say the Yellow Emperor, the Taoists say he was on actual record for 1,000 years doing traditional Tao or Taoist tradition, which is also what the Bible's talking about. So you have to say, in that science, they mean they mean physical life right now. They don't mean after you die. They mean you can live right here for what will seem like eternal life, or life everlasting, which is, if you talk to a 95-year-old who's tired and ready to die, they're ready to go. They're like, screw this place. It sucks. I want to die, But imagine if you had 1,000 years. Just imagine that, screw 100, but 10 times that. You'd probably be ready to go after that. And that's what their science is about. Now, that science, without getting into it, has to do with it's not that the constellations above affect your body, the salts and chemicals. You have your 12 organs and your 12 nerve centers. You have the 12 salts that make up the body, and they correspond to each constellation. But it's not that the constellation is affecting you. People get into astrology. It's not that Leo is affecting you physically. It's that the energy of this realm keeps changing daily, monthly, and yearly. And it just so happens the ancients noticed when it's the month of July to mid-August, what we call Leo, certain people born in that area start having certain things happen to them. And just like the full moons affect people and make them go a little crazy, astrology is really about noticing that at certain points of the year, the energy of this realm is going through the 12 waves that any wave form goes through, 12 functions. And they said, oh, well, the way we know that's going to happen is because that thing up there that we call Leo, we draw a lot, we call that Leo. We know when the sun rises in that thing, that's when this starts happening. But it's not that constellation is doing that to you. It's that the realm itself is doing that to you. And so one of the reasons they could be hiding this is because, when you're on the flat Earth, especially, if you know this science, and this is the reason only they study it, only the Masons and the Theosophists know and study the science. if you know this, you can start living for 1,000 years. You know what I mean? And you won't
Yeah.
be you won't be going crazy. You won't be taking their BS. So I think it's very possible that it's part of also the depopulation. They don't want people living to 200 or 600 or 700. So part of the reason they hide that is that if you're on a spinning ball of dust from a big bang and came from a monkey, you're not going to look into the science that they know, one of their secret sciences. And I think that could be what a lot of this is about. The religion also, you have to remember, heaven's a very good thing. If I don't know if you guys have ever seen that series Vikings that was going on. But like they all go into battle because they were told if they die in battle, then they get to go sit forever in Odin's hall, with Thor and Odin, and drink mead every night with with the gods. So if you've got someone believing they're going to die and go sit with the gods, it's very easy to get them to go off to war for you.
Mm-hmm.
If people think, well, if I die and that's the end of that, then they're not so likely to go lose if they're having a good life. They're not in a hurry to go out and lose it.
Right.
So there's that control part of some of the religions as well, even the Eastern religions too.
Yeah. Interesting. Somebody says, I want to know why there are 4 blood types. I don't know. That's just another really weird question, especially with the RH types. That's something that's really kind of bizarre to me. So I don't know. Maybe somebody knows the answer, but it's not me. So
It's
anyway.
not me. You'll have to die and reincarnate as another one and find out.
Yeah, exactly.
What I do like is the idea of, with all of the religions and the Eastern and Western, I like the idea that, as Cammie's saying, if this is kind of a playground and everything, if you die and then the next everything that wakes up is having the same, I'm it experience, it's like you're eternal. And even the other way, if you die and go to heaven forever, you're eternal. So in a kind of a weird way, or if you believe you die and then reincarnate as another person, or some of the Buddhists, like some people believe in a karmic wheel where if you're bad now, you might come back as a lesser animal, like an insect or something like that. But in all of these cases, there seems to be, humanity is in agreement that there's some kind of eternal whatever is going on here. You know what I mean? Like it never ends. It's only really the people who believe when you die it all goes black and that's that. But even that is really the same thing, because if it goes black for you now, again, the next thing that is born is having an I'm it experience, and it's not what you were, it's the new I'm it. So even that is really the same thing, actually.
Yeah. What's weird, Steve, is it's like, of all the inhabitants that appear to be here, it seems like nobody is comfortable, right? So you get Hillary Clinton on TV making her speeches, and she's, obviously a grand dame, part of the Illuminati, et cetera, and she's always talking about, well, we haven't broken that hardest, barrier. So that would indicate to me that, yeah, they want to break it. They want out of here. And of course, if she's truly one of the fallen demons and they know what's coming for them, oh, hell yeah, I'd want to get out of here too. But this really is not that great of a place, as far as I'm concerned. I guess Earth is what you make it. But I mean, especially lately, my God, it's completely insane. Nothing seems right. This is definitely not something I would want to spend eternity in, unless I, figured out how to completely change the way I exist in it. So exactly who is comfortable here? Who is this place made for?
I think the animals are, like the dogs. They're having a great old time. They're running around, eating some, they get some food and they get to jump on your lap. So I think it's the humans that are having a problem because we are under this system from people like the Hillary Clintons that are making this place not a good, like if Hillary Clinton wants out of here, just tell her to slit her wrist. We'd all be happy to see her get out of here.
Amen to that.
Don't let us stop you. But, I think it's because we're under this damn system that they've built around us. It's the humans that are in a state of shortage and not a lack of abundance. So for some of us, a lot of us are having a bad time. I can't remember if it was Zach or Kyle, whichever said, it can be a state of mind. Heaven or hell is a state of mind. So if you can get into that, you can be in heaven 1 minute and in hell the next minute when the phone rings with bad news. So you have that. But I agree with you. It seems like this system's so bad, we all want out. We also have to remember, when you look at like the Vedic systems, we're coming out of a very bad yuga, and also, you know, in the ages of the astrological ages, we're coming out of the age of Pisces, which was ruled by the negative aspect of Saturn, rule, law, you know, strictness. So it's been a really crappy time for about 2,200 years, you know, at least, according to their system. And then what happens in that system is these new ages come in, like Aquarius, and it's like a wave crashing on a beach. You know how the wave's building up, and then bam, it smashes on the beach and all hell breaks loose. And then there's some foam and it resides, and then it's peaceful till the next wave. Well, we're right there in two different systems, you know, in the yugas and the astrological systems. We're right where that wave's about to crash, you know, between Pisces and Aquarius. So, and the Hopis call it the blue star prophecy, you know, the blue star Kachina. Right now is like where all hell breaks loose, and it's just absolute chaos and pandemonium. And as you guys probably feel like I do, as frightening as all of this is, aren't you equally like, oh my God, this is the greatest time to be alive? Look how weird it all is. What do you guys feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, especially if you're aware of it. But then that's a double-edged sword too, because if you're aware of it, you also see how effed up everything is, right? But, you know, we're seeing things change dramatically. And if we are truly co-creators of this world, then we should be able to have a very significant influence upon it. And I'm not sure what we're seeing now, you know, with some of the more positive things coming up about, you know, certain lies that have been being told, et cetera, that we can't talk about here. I don't know if that's good news or bad news or what, but it is interesting. I'll put it that way. But I think we have a long way to go to call this place, you know, even remotely utopian. And yet there are some places that, you know, I feel like I could never want to leave. I absolutely love Hawaii. Love going to Maui. Love going to Kauai. I mean, you go to the north side of Kauai, it's one of the most beautiful islands. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And how can you not help but feel at one with God there, right? I mean, that's how I feel about it. And, you know, so I don't know, but I think it's interesting in that things are really changing. But if what we're finding out about this particular time, apparently things are changing a lot more rapidly than we ever thought that they did. Because, you know, the powers that be would have us believe that, oh, well, you know, change is slow, but every so many thousand years or millennia, you know, an asteroid will come down and destroy everything or whatever. But now we're finding out that it appears like there are these resets that may be taking place as often as every few hundred years. So is it really that special? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what people are starting to say, yeah, every 180 or 200 years, some kinds of resets in certain places. And that could very well be. And that makes sense because every fall, they're not dying. The leaves fall off the trees and they go bare and they're retoxing for the winter and then they come back. Everything's a cycle. Summer, winter, day, night, hot, cold. You know, now we're getting into hermetics again, where you can't have, I think, Bob, we've talked about this before. If you live in duality, you can't have Kauai be beautiful if you don't know what ugly is. You need to see Detroit.
Indeed. Indeed. You are so right about that. Yes.
You know what I mean? And Detroit, you don't know it's a shithole unless you've been to Kauai and vice versa. So we're always all trying to change the world. We're all a bunch of do-gooders. Like, we think you are changing the world with the show you're doing. You're changing your little pocket of it, and you're changing the people who listen and are involved with you. But you're not changing the world. You are, in a way, if the Easterners are right and we're all the world and we just think we're individual and that's an illusion, then you're actually changing the whole world. But you're never going to beat evil, because if you do, you make good cease to exist. There has to be evil for you to know what
That's
good
right.
is.
Contrast and continuity.
Yeah. So we're all us do-gooders are thinking we're going to destroy the evil empire, and it will just come back because it has to for there to be good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, that's the whole thing. People, I've actually had arguments with people where they say that there is an absolute objective good and an absolute objective evil. And as much as I've thought about that, I just can't agree with that. I don't believe it. I mean, to me, good and evil are subjective, entirely subjective. And, I could name a million examples of that right now. And yet I understand why people want to reach and believe in a completely objective good. But, one side requires the other. And it requires an understanding of horror to understand bliss. It requires an understanding of evil to understand good. It requires an understanding of hatred to understand love, right? You don't get the picture by just looking at one side of it, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. My favorite example is slugs and lettuce. In nature, lettuce grows in clumps. It doesn't grow in rows. They grow in clumps, and they starve each other of the minerals and water resources in the ground. So a lot of them die because they're fighting over the same minerals and water. Now the slugs come along and they eat a bunch of the outer lettuce, which makes more water and soil. So the inner lettuce are much healthier and thrive, whereas they would have killed each other all out if the slugs didn't eat some of the lettuce. So you could say in that way, oh, well, the slugs are good because they're helping the lettuce do their cycle. But if you're a lettuce farmer, you plant your lettuce in rows because you know that, so you just plant them in longer rows so they're not starving each other out. Now you hate slugs because they're coming along and eating your crops, which is your money. So to the farmers, slugs are evil. But to lettuce in the wild, slugs are good. It depends on how you zoom out and who's looking at it. So you're right. People like Mark Passio will say there is definitely only objective good and bad. And I agree there are certain circumstances where we would all at least agree on that, like murdering someone is bad.
Right.
Again, like I'm saying, if the Easterners are right, Bill Gates came from the same earth. If we're not ants invading the tree, but we're acorns growing out of earth, Bill Gates grew out of the same damn earth we grew out of. He's as much a Mother Nature as we are. So it might be, if you zoom out, Mother Nature needs to thin the herd sometimes, and she makes psychotic eugenicist billionaire philanthropists.
But you know what? It would just really, it wouldn't break my heart if he fell into a trash compactor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, screw that guy. God.
Once you start looking at the point of this conversation tonight is what happens when you die. Well, if this is a playground, and either, let's say you're a Christian and you go to heaven, or you believe you reincarnate again, or you're an Easterner and you believe the next thing that wakes up doesn't know any different than you do, that it's it right now, whatever. Or if you think it all goes black, it doesn't really matter if he genocides 5 billion people, because they're going to be okay. You know what I mean? What if you die? We're all gonna die. There's no one. What's the old saying? Bob Dylan said, "He who's not busy being born is busy dying." Nobody's getting out of this place alive. Not one of us. So whether you go out early or late or whatever, it doesn't really matter actually, because all the philosophies, you're okay in the end.
Yep. And by the same token, oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. We are eternal beings. And that's the flip side of the coin. So, even if we had 1,000 years here and it was pure hell, well, that's kind of a drop in the bucket, overall. That doesn't mean I want to sit here for 1,000 years and endure it. But I guess, again, this is where it comes back to your perception of your environment, right? If the way you look at, if when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If that saying is true, and you are able to look at things in a positive way and turn them into something positive, then suddenly it's not so bad. But if you are hell bent on them being so evil and horrible and awful, well, then you're going to be, caught up in that thought. And the consequences are going to come back at you, just like my friend I told you, Chuck, right? Everywhere he went, people cut him off in his car, right? And that only happened because Chuck was so damn sure that everybody would cut him off in his car, and he hated it. It made him crazy, right? but that he never let it go. And he talked about it and talked about it. And sure enough, everybody cut that guy off in his car. It's absolutely unbelievable. But when I saw that, he's the one that's making it happen, you know?
It's totally true. And there's sayings about like people, there are people even who get murdered and you say, oh, you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there are certain people whose energy is attracting these kind of an experience. As weird as it is to say, there are people who are attracting these bad things to happen to them. It's almost like they want it, you know what I mean? And this is proven time and time again. This is resonance. This is bioresonance. And this is why all this fear-based mind control is happening. One of the reasons is when you're in fear, you become very sick and acidic. You know, I was talking about this with Patrick Henningsen the other day on 21st Century Wire. Your cells, Bruce Lipton talks about this, they don't know there's a threat. So if the lion's chasing you, your five senses tell your brain and your mind that there's a lion chasing you, and then your brain tells your cells to make the biochemical change to build up the changes you need to run. Right? And then when it's done, you stop. Just like when you go jogging, you have to walk or stretch because you have lactic acid buildup because you've been running. And it's the same. If your cells don't, if there's a fake threat out there like COVID or, you know, any of this stuff they're doing, climate change, war, well, your cells don't know it's fake. They think it's a real threat because you believe them, and you start getting sick. That's one level of it. The other level is the resonance. So now you're vibrating in this low vibration. Just like if you put two guitars in one room and one in the other, and they're tuned the same, and if you hit the E string on one, even though three doors are shut and there's three walls between them, the E string will start vibrating at the same time on the other guitar, you know, several rooms down, even though there's barricades. Well, it's the same. If you're resonating in a low vibration, the only things that you're going to attract are low vibrational things.
That's a great analogy, by the way. I like that. It's absolutely true, too. And that is also true with what they call a Q of an electronic circuit, right? The efficiency of power transfer, that's what resonance is, right? So if you're resonant with something and that's where you're vibrating at, that's what you're going to attract. And that is exactly what happens when you are thinking, you know, you're down in the grunge and you hate everybody and hate everything and you're angry, et cetera, you draw it right out of the woodwork. It comes right at you. And I think we all know that's true.
To get out of it, that's the problem, is you're so busy worrying about that you don't have time to put your mind toward taking action to do something positive. You know, you can't do two things at once, especially if you're a guy.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
So if you're busy worrying about that crap, then you're not doing or thinking about something positive that's going to dig you out of that crap. You know, that's how the game works.
Yep. So
I can't help but think of watching like horror movies and how that stuff can literally attract like these dark spirits around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and think what it does to your vibration. You're having fun. Well, I've thought about the same. That's Kyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've thought about the same. You know, I love horror movies, and my son loves them. We always watch them, and we love the thrill of it. Like, oh my God! But you never stop and think, like, what is this doing to me and my vibration and my water while I'm watching this and all that?
It has an effect on you, and I just think about like kind of just being by yourself after watching that, and kind of like you're attracting these dark spirits around you when you watch it, and so you can feel it. There's an actual like feeling presence in the air that like that. The room changes when you watch these kinds of things. You know, when you listen to different music, it's like there's the feeling that the ambient presence in the room, it changes.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because when my kid was young, I was one of those bad fathers who I let my son watch horror movies when he was like 9 and 10, you know what I mean? Because my dad did. And his mom was yelling at me. She's like, you can't let him watch that. He's going to have nightmares and this and that. And I can't remember. We watched some scary ass. I think it was like a Poltergeist or something. And I thought, all right, that was pretty freaked out for a little kid. And he slept in my bed. And like an hour after he went to sleep, he started laughing in his sleep.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, he's not having nightmares from that. He's laughing. So
well, you know, Steve, there's something that's got to be good about that. And here's why I say this. Me personally, when I grew up, I was a metalhead. Absolutely loved heavy metal. And yet when you play rock and roll music, especially heavy metal, for plants or anything like that, it is so discordant. It absolutely it kills them. It literally will kill the plant. The same thing is going on when you play low vibration, dark type of energy movies like horror movies, right? Same type of thing. But strangely enough, at the same time, you get some sort of a pleasure out of it, right? And that to me is kind of inexplicable, but I love heavy metal music. It energizes me. It makes me be able to express, maybe angry or anxiety or anything like that. So there's a positive side to it, but at the same time, when we look at deleterious effects on human cells, it's bad, right? So
yeah, but then on the flip side, then you should be able to fix them immediately by doing something good after. If it can wreck it right then and there, then you should be able to fix it just as quickly.
I agree. So, and again, so what you do, I guess the key is then to stay in the positive frame of mind, no matter what gets you there, for as long as you do. And when you get out of that frame of mind, then go on to something else, another feel-good thought, if you will.
Yeah, and I get a lot of, when in my films, I read the comment sections, and a lot of people, especially when I'm doing podcasts and interviews, and they're saying, why is this guy laughing about genocide or animal torture for, virologists? And I'm saying, because I find it also absurd that I'm not going to sit here and get angry about it and make myself sick. Just like we talked about off air, we don't want to talk to our families about, what's in that thing everyone just took, because I'm laughing because I'm not going to ruin my own health and my own frame of mind. What's happening is happening. It is what it is, whether I like it or not.
Right.
So why should I bring myself down over it? Yeah, I'm going to laugh at the absurdity of it, even though, yes, it's horrific. I know. I'm not thinking genocide is funny. I'm just thinking it's ludicrous, and it's happening whether I laugh or get pissed off. So why should I get pissed off over it?
Exactly. Exactly. I guess go with what feels good at the time. And, moderation for everything, all those typical type of sayings. But it really is about focusing, about being in the moment, I guess, and trying to keep your joy in the moment.
Do you mind if I ask all the panel members, because this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to come on. If everyone doesn't mind, I'd like to hear what you all think or believe, whether you stick by it. What do you think happens when you die? Everybody.
I'm going to go last on that. So, Kyle, you want to take that first?
Well, I'm a big believer in the spirit realm. I've had, I don't know how many experiences with spirits just around me in the room, and I'm kind of sensitive to that kind of stuff. And so when we die, I don't have much question about, what's going to happen to me. I'm going to end up joining the spirits in the spirit realm, which I believe are here on Earth. And so, I've had many dreams where I remember one dream really vividly where someone called me on the phone and was asking for some help with their family history work. They just wanted some help. And so I said, okay. And then all of a sudden we'll set a time for we'll say 2:00. And all of a sudden I looked up at the clock and I watched the hands on the clock move really fast to 2:00. I was like, oh, well, I guess it's time. So I go over to this guy's house and I sit down with him in front of his computer, and the guy has no hands at all. And so I have to sit down and I have to do all of his typing for him. And and I kind of woke up from the dream, and I remember there was a name that really stood out to me. I was like, okay, who is this person's name? John Paul. And I had no idea. I had no connection with that name at all. And then I told my wife about that. And it's like, Kyle, my dad's name is John Paul Gubler. I'm like, what? Because we always just call him Jack. But he's like, yeah, my dad's name is John Paul Gubler. No one calls him by his name, really. It's just always Jack, but that's his name. And the moment that happened, just gave me tingles. I'm like, that is crazy. How would I know that just, without being told that beforehand? And so I immediately, I've got to go over there and I got to talk to him and, learn about his family history, because I had no idea about that. And so I think it's really important that we document and remember who our ancestors are. I look at our the commandment to honor your father and mother. And how can you do that if you don't know who they are? And so, yeah, there's an important thing about remembering people, remembering our ancestors.
You know, it's weird what you just said with the hands. I read a book about how to astral travel. And one of the things is you first have to wake up in your dream and realize that you're dreaming. You know, you have to become conscious you're dreaming.
Exactly.
They said to look at your hands because in your dreams you don't have hands ever. If you ever notice, you don't have your like arms and hands. You're just looking at everything but not doing anything with your arms. And that's
dreams is kind of like spiritually moving around, I guess you could say. And that's kind of why like flight is something much more feasible in your dreams, is because, you know, if it's spirit, you can, you know, move around freely, right?
Yeah, it's just weird because they said look at your hands or look at your watch, and when you realize you don't have hands or a watch, that's when you know you're dreaming. That's cool, man. Go ahead, carry on.
Oh, that was it. I was just saying, like, that was one dream I had that was a testifier to me that there's life after death, and you know, my body or my spirit continues to live on. And so I've never had any near-death experiences myself where I died and I remember seeing something came back, but I have had experiences with the dead. I've had many experiences with the dead, and just kind of in family settings, I could feel, you know, the dead near me as I learned and study about them. And so as I just go and read over their stories, and there's a connection, and I can feel their presence, you know, kind of there with me. And so I was just reading a book that my great grandma wrote, and as I was doing that, like, I could feel a presence in the room. It's just kind of an acknowledgement. I know that you're learning about me, and they encourage that. And I really believe that as we honor our ancestors, we really invite them to be our guardian angels for us. And so as we do our best to remember them, we invite them into our lives.
So you believe we have guardian angels out there watching out for us then?
Absolutely.
So do I. So do I, especially lately. Oh my God. The past 2 years, it has been uncanny. The things that we have just fallen into and that have happened for us with no real logical reason for it to happen other than perfect timing. And it's just because we followed our cues, you know, and I don't even know how to explain that other than, you know, we just had this desire and this feeling and this overwhelming, drive to move out of Colorado. We moved to the East Coast. We didn't know where we were going. We had no idea where we were going to live. We didn't even know what state we were going to live in. Didn't know what we were going to do when we came out here. All this stuff. And yet everything fell right into place all along the line. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And so I learned recently with mice. Mice, you can actually pass on their memories through their genetics. And so they did a study with mice where they would kind of get mice to be afraid of a certain smell. Okay, when this smell comes into the room, that means they're going to get shocked or something bad is going to happen to some kind of punishment. And so they kind of developed this fear of that. And then after a while, they had these mice have children, and they had never smelled it before. They made sure of that. And then all of a sudden the smell comes into the room and they freak out. And so I think there's a lot of these kind of genetic things that they can pass on to their children that happens with people also. And so I think with some of these kind of genetic memories, some people can get those confused with, oh, this is from my past life. No, it's actually from my parents' life or one of my ancestors' lives. And so I think there's kind of a lot of mixed signals that can happen with that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So, Zach, what do you think happens when we die? What's the first thing you experience? What was that?
Sorry, I was just waiting for my mute to unmute.
Okay.
Skype's been acting funky on me lately. Well, my view on this has changed multiple times in the last decade. 2010, I was a stout atheist. You know, just thought you died, black, nothing, it's over. That's what I believed since I was about 14 when I was taught about evolution and the Big Bang and all this other stuff.
Wow.
Then I found Fibonacci in 2011 and I started believing in a creator, you know, and that's still a belief I hold today, you know, that there is a creator. And for the longest time, I believed in, you know, heaven and hell and all these types of things. There was life after death, and you know, my family would be up there, and it's gonna be a big party forever. And then flat Earth came around, and it didn't change my belief in a creator, but it changed the way I thought about what I actually know and what is a belief, and you know, how far am I willing to take certain beliefs and say that's what I truly believe? Because since flat Earth, and well, it's about once a week, couple times a week, I'm reborn again. Just like Steve said, if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. It's all right, Ma. I look at it like Christmas anymore. What's going to happen when I die? You know, now there's certain things you hope you're going to get, and there's things that you believe you know you're going to get. That's the thing you asked for since last Christmas or blah, blah, blah. You know, you really put the emphasis on this one thing, that new pair of Nikes with the low cut, whatever. You know, that's my soul. I believe I have a soul. I don't know it. You know, these are things we can't know, but I believe I have a soul. That's the one present under the tree that I believe is there. And since flat Earth, I start looking at all these other presents or ideas of what happens after death, and I start saying, I don't know. Like that, you know, there's you know you're going to get certain things during Christmas, but then there's all these surprises. Well, I don't know. I have no clue what's going to happen after I die. I'm not scared. I look at it like Christmas, though. It's all going to be a gift. It's going to be a new experience that maybe I have experienced before, but it's been a while. I'll tell you that. And yeah, I'm not scared of it, but I look at it with, I'm going to be very cautious. I'm going to be very curious, and I'm not going to just take anyone's word for anything. Just like here, you know, my neighbors, great people, taught me that the tree in their yard was a vanilla tree. They believe that to be so. I taught someone else that's a vanilla tree. They went and looked it up, told me, hey, that's not a vanilla tree. Are my neighbors bad? No, they're not bad. That's what they believed. So everything I know, unless I do it myself, I don't know. I don't know if any of you existed before 1981. I don't. I'm going that far now with all the different crazy stuff going on in the world now with the Mandela and just things being, you know, my mind has been blown with what I've learned in the last 7 years.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Yeah. So did any of you exist before my first memory? I don't know. That's one of those things, you know, like Steve said, we are the center of our being. Everything around us is around us. We are the center. So I'm not going to claim that anything happened before my first memory because I don't know. So yeah, I'm looking at it like Christmas. These are all going to be gifts I get to open up as they come, and you know, I'll play it as it comes. But yeah, I have no clue. That's my answer. No clue. No belief. You know, I believe I have a soul. I believe there's a creator, and I'm going to take it from there.
Yep. Well, you know,
Love it.
That's really good. But I got to tell you, Zach, I cannot just be that passive towards it. I mean, from all the things that I've learned about what I believe is going to happen when we die, and I will get to that after everybody else is gone, I am not so content to take such a passive role into what happens to me when I die. I think that my consciousness will be there, and I have already, thought it through about what I believe is going to, what I believe is going to happen and how I'm going to respond to this. Kind of like a big chess game, right? I'm a chess player, and I've thought this through, and hopefully I'm smart enough to be able to anticipate all the moves that the dark entities that would like to lie to me and fool me in the afterlife, that I would be able to get beyond that. I don't know. I may not be up to the task, but I think that I just need to take a very active role into where I want to be after I pass on. So, all right. Well, that brings us over to Cami then. Cami, what do you think is going to happen to you when you die?
Okay, I'm going to be a unique person on the panel as usual. This is easy for me to be unique on this panel because I am the only one that has given birth. So I've been here when life has entered, and I've held, unfortunately, too many people as their last breath went out of their body. I was there when I held my dad when he died. I held my son when he died. I held my sister when she died. I'm pretty was also with friends and my sister and that when babies were born. I don't know. I go outside. I go to the river. I see the beauty of creation. I believe I have a soul because I feel I have a soul, not like feelings, like hurt your feelings, but how do you, in a world that like makes jokes about feelings and things like that, take it deeper than that? How do you take it so much deeper that all the way to the core of my being, I feel love and I feel a creator, and Bob will witness this. I've asked for miracles and I've received miracles. Sometimes the answer is no, but I have a ongoing dialogue or an ongoing prayer, an open prayer with something I feel very, very deeply. I don't again, I feel where everybody is like the me jumping in, it's about me. I don't feel like me or this world is about me. Again, I came into this world feeling like a child, and I'm almost 60 years old. And the more I learn, the more childlike I strive to become in a way. Just meaning learning with an open mind and seeing and feeling and see the answers. It's interesting with what you're saying with Bob, and like I've looked into West Pinra, and if you actually even look at the work I'm doing, it will describe very much where we live on is, I think it's very much a grid, an electromagnetic grid, if you're going to do that. And I don't know if it got corrupted, if people like along the way, there is areas for corruption. I think we should be careful. I do know that I feel the creator still, and I feel strong love. And I do know that like some of the times, I don't know, I just pray for clarity and trying to outthink or outmaneuver what I feel is love or over intellectualize sometimes again feels dizzying to me. Spend a lot of time out by the river, a lot of time with nature, and again, the more time you step away from the wires and the computers and go more into the creation, it's just a different type of a feeling. So when I
do you
die,
think you're like a consciousness, like you're still Cammy Nodell when you die, or what? Do you think like you're experiencing another frequency? What do you think the experience is, or is there one?
okay, I think that you're actually, that's a great question and a great way to phrase it. I almost feel like, again, my body is an antenna here and I'm having experiences. So I do not believe I am my physical body. I believe I dream a lot and go out of my body a lot. I believe that my body is more or less a physical avatar of it. So when you die, I think that you become aware, and you become aware of like even your past lives, if you've had them, or you could be a new soul. I think you can sit and wait it out, or again, choose. You have to go into the experience blindly. You can't go into birth with knowledge. Otherwise, again, there's no learning to be done, or no, again, examples that are thrown at you that I think you get put in different situations to respond to different situations and to build you are. At some point, I think you can join with the Father, or you can even call it, again, however you want to call the Creator, or then that I don't think it's like an instantaneous. I just feel it's more to it than that. I just feel it's more to it, and it's more than just saying I believe in Jesus, or that I believe we have lessons to learn in how we treat people. And again, it goes back to the more I learn, the more I think that religion teaches you about right and wrongs and those instincts. And then Bob will say, how do you even define rights and wrongs? But aside from that, you get into the things done with unintended consequences and how things you do can have unintended consequences down the road that can really hurt or help people. And I think a lot of the things we learn on this realm is that our intentions affect a lot, and even more than that, we reach out and touch more people and things more than we know. So I think, again, we're here learning.
Yeah.
And after we die, do we have more learning to do, or are we ready to move on?
Yep.
When you do, if you say when you do ascend in that, I do believe like crossing the Rainbow Bridge or the Shiny River, and that to be with the Eternals. I mean, you can take it as far as even the different races that I believe a lot of the stories. This is again just through a gut feeling. A lot of the things that we get through our antenna and write down as fiction or stories, that there were other races and this place got too violent, and some of the other, like they say, the elves crossed over to be with the Eternals. The people crossing over, I believe that we were at one point shut down, and it's making it back over across.
Yeah.
But until we can be a more stable type of group of people, or again, until I think that we lost the right to be there without learning a little bit, because we're children. We're very brave.
Where is there? Do you think there's another place outside of flat Earth, or is it a frequency? You know, like we only can sense this hurts through that, but it's in. Do you think it's the same place but in another frequency here, or is it somewhere else? And where is that? Well, of course we don't know where it is, but where do you think?
I have thoughts of it. They're probably not right, but I do have thoughts on it. My thoughts when you take, like Steve, you were looking at that Sephiroth that I was building, and that with the two magnetics, and you ran it down sideways, and I told you I ran it up and down. When I ran it up and down, I see it as an electromagnetic grid. I see it as part as like the base grid on it, that it was a construct, and on those realms you have underneath what you would call shoal, and you'll have the electromagnetic and the densities of it. Above us, I believe the firmament is where the wandering stars are, and the sun and moon, and it's a enclosure, and it's come down there. And I believe that, again, it's almost like a trapping point there. That's the part that, again, closing it off above that is where the heavens are. If you stack it up and look at, like, again, the Sephiroth, I could screenshot, but I think it's a very physical place. I think everything in our history, everything in our books, everything in our science, you look at our magnetics, it describes a very physical place. Now, are we physical flesh and blood bodies on these other realms? Not necessarily. Can you be light bodies? Or again, we can be in a different density there, especially, again, I think this is the physical density layer of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like there also has the same, let's call it Hertz frequency that we call our physical experience of this realm. But up there, you could be in another still frequency band, but it does have a same frequency band we have here. Is that what you mean?
Right.
It's got a real
geographic. A smaller part of the spectrum.
Right. So one thing I will say, when the things that I've learned, in all these studies, is that, and this is drawing largely on a very large body of external beliefs and studies and sciences, is that we are in our own little cage, if you will. And I would say that it's more a prison so much than it is a protected realm that we are, being held from danger from. In fact, I think we're being exploited. And, it kind of takes me back to the idea of the Matrix, where, Trinity calls Neo copper top, right? What does that mean? That means that Neo is basically being used for the energy that's being harvested out of him. In this case, pure electrical energy. In the case of what I have learned from, these other schools of thought, is that when people experiences different emotions, whether it's joy or horror or pain or anything like that, they each come with a very specific frequency that, unfortunately, there are kind of parasitic beings that actually feed on this. And these are part of the captors that have created this grid around the earth, right? Okay, so do I think that's true? I think it's entirely possible, especially when you see that everything keeps wanting to bring us back around that. So it's like, okay, so what happens when we die then? Well, usually when people die, the first thing they see is the white tunnel of light, right? And, everybody says, oh, don't go into the light, don't go into the light, whatever. But the first thing they see is this white tunnel of light. And accompanying that, they feel it's a sense of peace and joy and love. And it's one of the most serene things ever. And, it's pretty hard to not want to just dive right into it, right? But the problem is that is something, from what I understand, that these parasitic beings are actually generating that frequency artificially to lure us into that white light trap, to then bring us back to a reincarnation type of state. Now, once we enter that white light, then theoretically, they will sit there and you'll see your, well, actually not necessarily once we enter it, but if you haven't already come across your relatives before entering the white light, and them trying to talk you into entering the white light, then you certainly will be tried, be talked into it, right? To entering the white light. Basically, they want to trap you and bring you back. And then, of course, once you're in there, then they basically do an erasure of your memory, and they do it via an extremely high electric charge, kind of like what they do with mental patients, honestly. And I'm saying this is the research that's been done by other people. I'm not just coming up with this out of nowhere, but I tend to think that there's something to this because of all the other experiences that I've had, right? So once they've got you back into the white light, then you're in again, and they have another opportunity then to make you basically be trapped here throughout all eternity unless you wake up at some point. Now, supposedly the grid itself is in a state of failure because of so many people that are waking up, and it is that waking up energy that is causing the grid to fail, right? And it's causing problems for basically the parasites that are, trying to bring us back here over and over and over again. So that's why I wonder about religion. I think it's great that people can say, well, I found my Messiah through Jesus and it's everything. And I accept that when I accept him as my savior, that I'm going to be saved and everything's going to be just a-okay. But to me, it just sounds like another variation on trying to bring us back into this world to live under somebody else's kingdom, throughout all eternity. And the verbiage is as brazen as to say exactly that, to me, that's suspicious. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that anybody's wrong for believing it or anything like that, but I just have a hard time accepting it because I think that, we're lied to about everything there is to be lied to about in this life. Why in the hell would I possibly want to believe that that's going to change in the afterlife? Maybe I'm terribly, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, completely corrupted by this, but I just think that it's entirely possible. So when I die, the thing that I'm going to try and be mostly aware of is where the grid placement is. And if you study this, you can find, where it is. You'll look up, you'll see it. You will set your intention on leaving it. And when you leave it, then you leave this part of the universe that is a trap, and you go back basically to the creator universe, which technically could be Orion, could be some other part of it. But that part of the universe is more akin to being feminine, right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've always thought that as far as gods go, I think that a female type of energy is a far better deity energy than a male energy, because women are so, they give birth, they give life, right? They're so much more in tune. They are nurturers. They are unconditional lovers without a doubt. Let's face it, guys, women got it all over us on that, right? They really do. Now, they may or may not, people may say they don't have the strength that a man does, but again, I even disagree with that. I think they shine when it comes to showing strength at severe situations and stuff like that. And in these schools of thoughts, and these go back to like kind of Vedic thoughts and stuff like that, that the, primary deity is actually female in sex. Now, whether it has a penis or a vagina, I don't know. I don't think that matters. I think it's more the characteristics of what the deity is. But so when I get out of here, I want to focus on getting out of this part of the grid that is under control of the parasites, if you will, and move elsewhere to other energetic constructs, which, by the way, do look like stars, but they are energetic constructs, and their entire universes in and of themselves that are co-created with other types of life beings. Now, to me, that makes a whole lot more sense. And believe it or not, they actually have science that does this. There's remote viewing that talks about this, and there is absolutely a coherence when it comes to the thought behind this. And so that's where I'm going with it. Does that sound crazy? Am I out of my mind, or what do you guys think?
What's kind of funny is that if you look at the Gnostics and the Druids, they say we do live on Mother Earth. We're living on a feminine goddess. And if you look at the Vedics, they've got Kali, and she is the negative form of feminine, which is destruction. And this earth, like you're saying, maybe it resets every 200 years or 1,000. So it's kind of ironic that we already are, allegedly, according to some people, on a female goddess, and she has Kali destruction, which is rebirth. I think she's the destroyer, because when you understand cycles, every destruction is followed by a brand new, beautiful rebirth. But I think that's interesting, because really we're actually on a female energy.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that God is a male or a female. I just think that the most endearing characteristics, the most loving and accepting and more of the positive characteristics, I believe, belong to the female sex. Yeah, people could say, oh yeah, well, somebody in the comments said, yeah, put an army of women against an army of men, and they'll kick their butt. Well, yeah, that may be true on a physical level only, but you know what? There's much more to this existence than the physical level. And in fact, I would submit that the physical level is the most primitive level that we could exist at. So, if you want to be, go ahead.
Put any of those soldiers in a marriage with a vindictive woman who wants to get him, and she will crush him within weeks.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Not a punch thrown.
So yeah, so it's crazy.
That's one of the things talking about God with people is everyone's having these debates, atheist, God. The first thing nobody ever does is say, well, are we even talking about the same thing? What do you think God is? Is it a being? Is it electromagnetism, intelligent? There's 7 billion people on the planet. There might be that many ideas of what God is or beliefs. So it's really hard to have that debate until you say, like, what are we talking about here? Are we even discussing the same thing?
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way. Our own Bible tells us who the God of this world is, right? It says it in no uncertain terms that basically Satan is the God of this world. Is that correct? It is, right? So if Satan is the God of this world, and, there's any truth to that whatsoever. And geez, you would certainly think about it. Do you think that would be true, considering that, all of the higher institutions are corrupt, about the fact that, the Bible tells us that we need to respect the law and the leaders, that he installed the leaders of the community. I mean, I kind of see, Jaron's point of view on this type of stuff. So, if that's true, then I really don't want to be where I don't want to be in this place. I don't want to be in this place. Let's put it that way. So, and again, I'm not trying to offend anybody or anything like that you believe in. In fact, your path is yours to determine alone, and don't ever let anybody take that away from you. Not me, not anybody. But your path is yours to determine your own. But, like I said, be wise. Look into it. Really, really look and find out what we do know about afterlife existence. Look into the philosophies and, try and make an informed decision about what you think is going to happen, for the best outcome of your existence, point blank. So, I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, the other thing is, there's several ways to read the Bible. So if you were looking into like esoteric biochemistry and theosophy, they would say Satan is the sun when it begins its fall in the analemma. How the sun's rising through the sky, then it's at its highest point, and then it begins to fall after September. Mm-hmm. That is what the theosophists say Satan is. They don't say it's an actual god or being. The sun is the god, and Satan is when the sun begins its fall. In other words, in the analemma, when it starts to go lower and lower in the sky. And in the body, Satan is the physical or animal aspect. The animal desires the red chakra. The devil's red, it's the red chakra, the animal desire, the sexual drive, wanting physical things and not living
natural man.
Yeah, just animal man. You have spiritual man and animal man, and they coexist. A lot of people agree that we are a spiritual being in an animal body. So if you look at it from theosophy, Satan is not the god of this world. In other words, the one who's running this world. It's a metaphor for the sun and for the physical body. So again, we get into these same kind of weird things. We always have to say, like, are we talking about the same thing? A theosophist and a diehard literalist Christian, I'll be talking about Satan, and they don't even mean the same thing. And they're trying to have a discussion over who's right. And you're like, well, neither of you are right or wrong, because you're talking apples and oranges.
Yeah, right. Satan just means adversary, right? I mean, basically. So that would tend to me that if God is all good and all pure and goodness energy, that adversarially to that would be bad, right? Or in opposition.
Well, Shatan, I have I don't have my glasses on. I have Bollinger's Witness of the Stars. Shatan is the name of a star when in the constellation where the sun starts to fall in the analemma. Whichever constellation that is, one of its brightest stars is Shaitan. That's where Satan comes from. It's the name of a star in the constellation when the sun starts dropping in September. Yeah. And I can't find it in this book, but I have it here. I can put it in the show notes later if people want to look in.
See, and that's one of the things, though, Steve. It's like there are so many confusions in the language, right? And supposedly God did this intentionally. But, we hear all these different meanings in all these different words in different contexts. I mean, to listen to like Just Jack and Karen B do their show on scripture, about where he looks at the Hebrew version of the Torah, right? And breaks it down to what these words actually mean. Wow, is there a lot of bad translations in this, in what things actually are. And so
I really like the words good and bad, and how in the Torah there in Hebrew, it's functional, whether it's functional or not functional. And God made the plants and animals and said that it was functional. That was the term, and they made a big deal about that. I was like, oh, that's really interesting to kind of adapt that and kind of, that using that as a determination of what good bad is, functional and non-functional.
Yeah, and that's the problem too. I've heard their show. It's really good. I haven't heard all of them, but this is the problem. There's a lot of people who aren't studying this kind of stuff, and the Bible's got several translations. Not only that, there's numerology in there. This Bible was written by these people. They were adepts. They were, the number 9 is the consciousness after meditation, a higher consciousness. God said 144,000 will be saved in the rapture. 4 plus 4. It's all these things start adding up to 9. 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9. Mm-hmm. Cast your net to the right side of the brain to the east, and you will catch these many fish. It always adds up to 9. They're talking about meditation and opening up the right brain to this light. And so there's a whole nother level in the Bible that's talking about actually light and electromagnetism. And then there's a level of it that's talking about physiology and chemistry. And then there's another one talking about the stars. So if you're a literalist, then you're not, and your priests will never tell you any of this. And that's what's great, what Karen B is doing, because your priests are never taught this either. But funny enough, if you go start reading the works of the saints, the old Christian saints, these people were astrologers. They were right, the works of the early Christian saints, they were actually looking at Christianity as a science. But now the priests aren't taught any of this, so that no one's actually looking at these other sides of the Bible. They're just like, nope, literally, and then ironically, isn't the speed of light something like 144,000?
It's 186,282 miles per second.
All right, what's that in kilometer? 144?
300 million.
Right. Okay. Never mind. Yeah. Well, something like is supposed to line up. I don't know, but
yeah, there's a lot of lineups like that. Believe me, I know what you're talking about.
Things where they're talking in numerology, and Cammie would know this because she's into tarot. And the tarot cards start matching up to the numbers in the Bible. Even the Bible, when you say, "How many books have you read that have?" First of all, a book in it called Numbers, but every chapter is a number. Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. When's the last time you read a book where every paragraph had a number sequence to it?
Well, because it was, but I mean, it's the most referenced book in history. And so I think it wasn't written with the numbers next to it. That was just to refer to it, right? I mean, the numbers are not.
Well, this is it. Was it because there are a lot of books talking about those exact numbers and how many verses are in what was left in the Bible? We know there are the other books that were taken out. But then you start thinking, did they take out the other books because this number coding system didn't work? You see what I'm saying? Is it, they say, they took these, what do they call it? The apocryphal, I can't say the word. Apocryphal.
You keep on doing it. I'm going to laugh at you trying to say it because I also typed the apocryphal. Bob.
Yeah.
We all know what it looks like.
Yeah, Kyle.
Kyle.
Apocrypha or apocryphal?
That's the one. So they say they took these, they hid these books from us out of the Bible. And what I'm saying is, think about it. There's a very, very precise numerology code running through those chapter names, numbers, and verses, and as many verses as there are. They might have taken those books out because they couldn't do this coding system with them in. It might have been too complex. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but that might be why, because the Bible is coded with numerology having to do with those numbers in the beginning of each paragraph. So, this starts making you think even on another level than what Karen B and them are talking about is, are you reading the Bible with the numerology and the tarot in mind? And, Kabbalah.
Is the book of Revelations, is that considered finished in one of the 66 books that were kept in the Bible?
No, it's in there. Yeah, it's kept. What's really funny is a lot of Christians say, the Bible is against astrology, right? They're saying, but really they mean divination. They mean like fortune telling and divination. There are many passages in the Bible that are talking about astrology specifically. Can you not bind the sweet hands of Pleiades? But funny enough, you look at Revelation, isn't that actually divinity? Isn't that prophesizing?
Absolutely.
Like, the Bible says don't prophesize and do divinity, and you're like, but the book of Revelations is that exactly.
Well, and what does that say about, when the stars are there for to predict signs and seasons? That's kind of a the same type of deal, right?
It's
So-
astrology. It says
Yeah.
right in Genesis, the stars were there for signs. What signs? Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo. They're there to tell you what's going on. I would recommend this book I have. It's really hard to get, but if anyone can find The Witness of the Stars by a guy called Bollinger. I bought it used online, and it came out of a library I can see, and it was checked out by a Freemason, actually. I can see it's got a Mason stamp. But anyway, if you get your hands on this book, it will blow you away when you start learning the names of the stars and these constellations and what this story is telling. So yeah, the Bible is telling you that the Bible is astrology. So that's not divinity. There's a difference between astrology and fortune telling and divining. These aren't the same things. One is not witchcraft. The Bible is telling you that it's all about this. And look at Revelations. That is divining. So I don't know.
So many people say that astrology is witchcraft, and it's just like, I don't get that. To me, me, the way that I look,
men find Jesus.
Say
they
it
were
again,
watching
Jack?
the stars. How did the 3 wise men find Jesus? They
They're
followed
watching
a star.
Orion's belt. Yeah.
Yeah, astrology. They followed the star. Yeah, astrology.
I mean, the story of Jesus starts with astrology in it.
I draw the line between astrology and witchcraft by including all these different like prayers and mantras, and there's all these rituals. Astrology, as long as it's not ritualistic, I can't call it witchcraft. But the moment I'm going to draw a circle and I'm going to put the star in the circle,
pour blood all over the place,
say all these words and do all these ritualistic sacrifices and stuff.
Yeah,
that's when it's witchcraft.
Then you're getting on the weird side. I agree, Kyle, completely.
It's really easy. We were told to look at the heavens for signs, and to use them. But the second that you start casting spells and doing evil with the information, that's when you cross the line. That's the witchcraft is trying to control the creation. And I can agree more. And yet I do run into the argument a lot, even with the moon phases and the different things, the way that they dance together. If you compare them, it's like, well, you're not supposed to be looking, and you're not supposed to be comparing religiously. And it's like, I can't find that. I'm really enjoying, as I jump around, I'm really enjoying what we were talking about earlier, Karen and Jack's sola scripture on Saturdays, where it's anti-religious scripture study, and it's complete concordance. That again, we're just looking at the root words, taking them all the way back, all the way to the roots, and discussing what they could mean. And Jack leaves it at that. He leaves the openings. He does not. If he interprets it a certain way, he'll say, well, I think of it this way, but you need to think of it on your own.
That's right.
I'm amazed because the book is not at all what I thought it was, and it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, guys, is that's what we're saying. We can all, divine different meanings out of all of these words and actions and things that happens, but ultimately the only ones that you can really take to heart are if you're honest with yourself, how are they affecting you? And that's what you need to go by, because your life is not my life. My life is not Steve's life. Steve's life is not Cammie's life. And, we need to be very aware and also very tolerant of that. And, just because you don't see eye to eye with somebody on that, again, I told you before, I don't believe that there is any such thing as an absolutely objective truth. And I stand by that. I just don't think that there is. I think that is entirely subjective, and that is your relationship that you have with your creator. And there you have it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about these kind of conversations. You're not trying to piss off like diehard Christians or atheists or whatever. A lot of people get triggered by this conversation.
Oh man, do they?
It's a little tentative to have it. But I think, what we should all do is, like you say, just listen to each other's side of the story and make up your own mind. Say, is it possible I haven't been told something, or maybe I'm missing something, or just listen to everyone's story and you don't have to believe any of it. But, you know, sometimes you learn some things and go, wow, I never thought of that. And then you can start saying yourself, does this make more sense than what my priest told me growing up, or, you know, what I read on the internet or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we used to all think the earth was a ball, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, for me, one of the red flags is the fact that this conversation triggers everyone. To me, that's a massive red flag that they don't want us having this conversation.
I agree 1,000% on that, Steve. And again, I think what they did, I'll say this not for the first time, I feel what they did in order to look at creation and to really understand everything together, you really need to put together religion along with science, along with again, looking at the stars and looking at, again, the tarot and things like that. But what they have taught each one of these groups is that the other two groups are evil, so people don't try to piece it together. I mean, and you can go to a religious person and, oh, the occult is witchcraft and it's evil and we're not to go there. And science, well, science is making up lies that don't go along with the things. And so that book is writing a different faith base. So I can see the thing on it. If you go into science, you just really make fun of the New Agers and you make fun of the religiotards. And again, that's the mindset of going into each one of the groups, is that you're completely triggered by the other groups. And yet I found when I put, like, again, tarot cards together with data maps together with the Bible, the Torah in particular, a lot of information started coming out that, like, again, without putting the pieces together, you're missing a lot. So I think we are triggered, and I think that we'll be hidden from it. And again, people are taught to stand their thing. So until you can look at it with an open mind and find out why you're triggered. I understand in the Bible you don't want to do witchcraft, and you don't want to, but witchcraft is an action word, not a understanding. In other words, it would be, to me, better to understand how they're doing the witchcraft and, you know, not to do it unintentionally. Remember your unintended consequences that you could have. To me, being aware of things, you can make better choices, but keeping yourself entirely blind and being triggered by it in a place that you're in anger, even going there, it was done by design, very much by design.
Very good. Wow.
Definitely, yes. Yeah. And, you know, you start looking like, if you get this book, The Witness of the Stars, they talk about, you know, the constellations. When you look at what's called Virgo, she's the woman holding the wheat, and you start to find out what it is. But there's a star in that constellation called Albumazar. And the old Persians say it denotes a virgin sitting on a throne with an infant boy. And the Hebrew name of the infant boy is Ihesu in the old Persian, Ihesu, Yesu, which means Ieza, I-E-Z-A, and in Greek they call it Christos, right? But they took this star out of the modern maps. You have to get the old maps. So you've got the sun, you know, it sets in Virgo. Mary sits on the right at the cross when Jesus is crucified, when the sun comes down. There's a lot of stuff when you start looking at astronomy and astrology where the Bible starts to take on a completely different meaning, and we don't know the names of the stars, and we don't know the ancient Persian names of the stars, or Hebrew, like what Karen B and them are doing. So this is knowledge that we don't have, where if you start going back and looking at it with these knowledge, you start to see the same story in the Bible, but totally different than, you know, people on earth. You start looking at it as an annual thing happening in the sky. And then you go, well, what are the coincidences that this happens 7,000 times throughout this whole story? You know, it does start making you think, is this a metaphor?
Mm-hmm.
I could see if one of these things lined up, but it just happens over and over and over again. So either the story of Jesus is way older than 2,000 years because these maps are, you know what I mean? So either they name the stars after this story, or they name this story after the stars. And that's up for each individual person to make up their own mind on.
Yeah, but there is definitely a lot of repetition.
Yeah, but we're wandering off topic of the afterlife. But actually, it's a big part of it because if you believe that if you just say, I believe Jesus is my savior, you know, and then I'm going to heaven forever, well, what happens if Jesus is actually a metaphor for what's the sun and going on in the stars? Now we got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it takes on a whole nother
Have
meaning
you ever-
altogether. Zach, did you say something earlier?
Yes. Steve, have you ever heard the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's called?
Yeah, I actually have, but I'm drawing a blank right now, just so remind me. I've heard of it, but I can't remember which one it's talking about.
Oh, don't quote me on this. It may be Hindu, but it's the story of the sun and the moon. And it's like a love story that's written out. And I read it and I didn't get it because I didn't know that that's what it was supposed to represent. I was like, what does this have to do with cosmology? And then someone told me, oh, that's about the sun and the moon and their relationship and this and that and yet. And then it changed the whole story.
Yeah, that's how the Bible was for me. You know, I feel the same way about the Bible, especially when I started learning biochemistry and learning that a lot of the Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and Scandinavian mythology in the Bible are talking about things that also happen in the body. And I thought, oh my God, this makes complete sense, you know. But again, yeah, it's like you say, when you read some, I can't remember who said this once. They said, if you read a book with a golf ball sized consciousness, you take away a golf ball sized understanding. If you reread that book with an ocean sized consciousness, the same book will give you an ocean sized understanding. And this is the whole point of us studying and researching and having open discourse on these subjects instead of getting triggered, is maybe we come to much bigger and better and more important understandings when we share knowledge with each other instead of yell at each other as heretics. You know, I don't know if the Inquisition story is even true because we're learning most of our history is BS, but if it is true, you have to wonder, why did the Roman Catholic Church and the Inquisition burn all these witches and Gnostics? You know, why were they burning witches who were doing tarot and astrology and all that? If they did really do that, it's clearly these people had a knowledge that was very dangerous to the business corporation known as the Roman Catholic Church. Do you think, Cammie?
Correct. That's 100% correct. Catholic, the word means universal. It translates into universal. And no, they were very much, I think, using Christianity almost as a front. But they spent a lot of work and effort spreading the universal and the globe model throughout as an underpinning. And you're right, the tarot and any of the people that, again, they're going after, they're people that have a natural understanding of how things work. And that would negate trying to teach us that we're on a water ball flying through space. Your tarot people would not have, a space water ball. Couldn't agree more on that. I'm sitting here reading like the Psalms on it about reading the handiwork and how, again, written in the skies. It's written in the skies. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. Start reading Psalms right now. That is, again, describing what's written in the stars. It's all the same. All of the religions, the Bhagavad, I don't even going Eastern and Western. The more I go into them, the more I keep on finding the same stories over and over again. When you go deep enough, it's
Can you read that?
the song
again,
remains
Cammie?
the same.
That was the perfect definition of a frequency, right there.
Okay.
A star, giving off a frequency. We can't hear it. We don't see it. But it's there, and it goes to the ends of the earth and covers this whole plane as it passes over it.
Okay, this is the English Standard Version of Psalms 19:1 through 4. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaim his handiwork. The skies above is also firmament, the way people have read it before. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words, whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and the words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun. read it in a different. I have all kinds of. I have a New King James version is, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows His handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. Day unto day utters
Now,
speech, and night. Pardon?
I'm sorry. What if they're talking to us? You know, like
They are. They are. That's
radio
what I think with the blood
transmitter
types
at
and
the
that the
station.
antennas. Yes, when
Like
we
a
were.
radio transmitter at the station.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these waves are passing through us and past us all day long as I've been alive. I've had radio waves and television waves around me, but I can't hear them. I can't see them. You need that little tuner, the antenna and all that stuff.
While we
Has
were.
anybody ever tried to make an antenna to listen to a star?
I've had days where I had a song stuck in my head, and then all of a sudden I turn on the radio and there's the song. It was
Me too.
Yeah.
And they
While
say
we were-
that having long hair is one key to that. Like the code talkers, they found that, you know, they had this intrinsic ability to kind of psychically tap into being able to translate the codes. And they found that they couldn't do that stuff without their long hair. So the Army made a special dispensation for them to be able to keep their long hair, so they kept their extrasensory abilities, which I think is quite interesting.
I feel that's really interesting. I think that, again, we're all getting signals and hearing stories and things all of the time in a very subliminal way. People in the chat earlier while we were talking, I was having a side chat in the chat about blood types, people asking about them. And I put into it and had a lot of feedback that, as far as my research goes, it seems like the different blood types work more as an antenna on what signals we pick up. And this would be the exact type of signals I'm talking about.
Yep, I agree. Very interesting. All right. Well.
I don't know if we're going more on this, or if you want to now go back and debunk density and what was the other thing you were going to debunk earlier, you said?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to keep the shows down a little bit to a more reasonable length. And I know that it's late for you there. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to cover the thing for Flatzoid on the relative density disequilibrium on Sunday, and kind of wrap it up here, Steve. But gosh, thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion. And I could literally talk about this all night long. And I know that maybe it's not everybody's bailiwick, but I also I have my things too. I don't really like to like when Jaron goes into religious talks. I hate it. And here I am kind of sort of having one, but it's in a little bit different context. And I think this is really super interesting because it's not necessarily bound to any religious belief system. It's bound more to scientific research, philosophies, and religion. So that's one reason I really like it. And I think it applies to everybody, and it's something that everybody can relate to. So
my view is that religions are science. They are science wrapped in stories. That's the way I see it, that mythology and religions are science. They're just, if you ever, like, when you read the Bible, do you notice how childish it's written? I'm a very left-brain person. If I had to describe cymatics, I wouldn't go, and God made the firmament and then the stars,
right.
To me, like it's written for a 10-year-old in the Old Testament. And I think that in a way it kind of is like it's a simplified way to how would I explain a very advanced science to kids? And you would do it through storytelling around the campfire. And I sort of look at it almost like that. A lot of these religions, they are sciences when you start looking into them, but they're just written in a weird way that we wouldn't do now. And it would take me like 2,000 pages to just cover Genesis. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
In a way, it's genius.
A lot of it is in the translations, though, I think, Steve, because when you do it in Hebrew, like Karen B and Just Jack, instead of saying universe, it says one spoken verse. It talks about, that he created this place with his voice.
Do you mean cymatics? Yeah. Is that what you take that to be?
Yeah. Well, now that I know what I know and I've heard the Hebrew version and stuff like that, yeah, I think they were exactly speaking science. a lot of it has to do with physics. And this,
Yes, cymatics. Do you think the word of God is sound waves?
yeah, some kind of frequency.
Yes. Well, absolutely. It's a combination of all the sound waves. Who was it? Who is the voice of God in the Bible? Oh, come on.
Metatron.
Metatron, right, is the voice of God, right? So Metatron, obviously, and it's funny because you learn funny things from movies like the movie Dogma, right? So, Metatron is always going around and he's acting as the voice of God, but when God speaks, it's this outrageous sound that just melts people's brains, right? So basically the way I see it is when God speaks, or when God vibrates, sends out a vibration into the universe, it is a combination of multiple frequencies that cymatically manifests through the ether creation, things to come into existence. And so I think that, Metatron is the person that kind of translates that, but it's those actual sounds and those waveforms and those pressure fronts, because it's all about pressure mediation, that's making it happen. And this is where God speaking things into existence is a reality as far as I'm concerned. I believe that actually happens.
I remember, I know he's a baller, but that guy, the physicist Nassim Haramein, he's like a rebel physicist.
Oh yeah, I know him very well.
I remember him saying in one of the Bibles, in the foreword, like the preface to one of the translated Bibles, it said God is the tetragrammaton.
Right.
Like it said it right at the beginning of the not the real Bible, but the translation.
Yod-He Vod-He.
Yeah, now you're getting into the grid you're talking about.
Yeah.
I said God is the tetragrammaton. What? What?
I know. It's a deep subject. It is not something that anybody can comprehend or understand, in just a quick minute. It really requires a lifetime of study and dedication, which most people cannot do that, obviously. And that's why you really have to kind of admire people that have dedicated their whole life into understanding this. But even so, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily on the right track, So again, that's why it's so important that each person looks into this and how it applies to their life and their existence, because that's what really matters, right? And, you're the one that's dealing with eternity, so you should be the one that you're trusting in this. That's the way I see it. Even though I do take...
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, even though I do take a lot of other research into consideration, there is no one, source that I will ever look at as completely dogmatic. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, I said that to Karen B on some Facebook post. That's one of the things I have with flat Earth. I get it; it's flat. We're all trying to figure out: is the moon plasma? Is it a hologram? Is it real? Like, there's all this stuff we're trying to figure out. And I'm saying, you know what? Maybe we're just not supposed to know. Maybe if you, like I was saying with the dreams, if you take away the mystery of this realm, it gets boring. You're supposed to, maybe you were supposed to have a little mystery and excitement. And would you revere the heavens if you knew exactly how they worked? Would you really revere them, or just treat it as another science object?
Well, it's fun trying to figure it out, man. It really is.
It's fun trying to figure it out. But if you do, would you really be in awe of it anymore if you could just actually explain it away in common everyday science?
Yeah.
I think maybe we're not supposed to know, but that's my opinion only. I'm totally probably flat earth.
I gotta say, that kind of happens with movies. When something is mysterious, it's a little bit more fun. But the moment of all of the mystery is gone, oh, okay, I already understand all these things now, then it kind of loses a lot of that special quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's got to be a good movie if you want to watch it more than once.
Yep. Oh, and hey, speaking of good movies, guys, I watched Top Gun Maverick this week. Wow, that's a really good movie. I loved it. Just thought I'd put it out there in case you're interested. It's really...
I've heard a lot of really good
in
things
the
about
theaters, actually. It was great.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, the videography was amazing when they were flying in the jets and stuff. I
Yep.
watched it, kinda. I just fast forward to all the jet stuff and watched that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew there was going to be a love story and this and that, and I really wasn't. I just wanted to see them fly the planes and see how well they. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yep.
I like they kept the old music though, you know, because I'm old enough. I saw the real one back in the '80s, so
Yep.
they kept the same tunes and they kept the same dumb jokes and stuff. So I thought it was pretty good actually, especially when he found that F-16. Spoiler alert, but you know when they had to escape in his old jet from Top Gun 1, that was pretty funny.
That was sweet. That was totally sweet. So yeah, they did, you know, sometimes they can bring the new in with the old, and man, did they do a fantastic job. I mean, I never thought it's one of those amazing movies where the sequel is actually every bit as good, if not better, than the original, in my opinion. It was
I
really
just wanted
amazing.
to see if he was going to dip the nose when he was high testing the 10G speed test.
I know, right?
Like, are you going to dip the nose, or are you going to fly out into space, or what, man? Are you on a ball, or what?
Yep. Yeah, and they made that crack about the ball Earth
Yeah,
in there.
curve of the earth.
Yeah, the curve of the Earth.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Of course, the look though that the general gave him when he said that.
Yep.
Watch it again, because that's right at the beginning. We're not spoiling anything. It happens right at the beginning. But if you go watch it, pay close attention to the look that the general gives the guy, because it's you're full of shit. That's
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So anyway, all right, guys. Well, you know what? I think we're going to call that a show. And Steve, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fabulous talk, and you know, I can hardly wait till our next encounter, get Ross back with us, and we'll talk about something else that's a lot of fun.
I would love to, and Ross is dying to as well. If we could, I would really like to talk more about the ether and this water I've been showing you guys, which is new to me. I don't know what I just know the basics of it yet.
That and also the victors. Let's talk about the victors and the Benikovs and you know, the ones that are doing the study with the water and the B sounds and the jet engine, right? That dovetails right into whether or not jet engines are using as much fuel. So I think that's another.
Well, I'll tell you what else, Ross, because Ross and I, you know, like I said, we're looking at a bug out property. He's been on YouTube looking at how to make over Unity energy devices.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got about 20 of them that run 70% over Unity using all kinds of different stuff.
Wow.
We also we came up with an invention, so maybe we can run it by you guys next time. Using a water thing that kind of looks like a roller coaster, but then you use these Viktor Grebennikov impellers to pull you know how the water is going downhill, and then when it goes uphill, it loses its what do you call it? It loses some of the motion.
Mm-hmm. It's inertia.
Inertia because of gravity, allegedly, whatever that is.
Right.
Well, if the water's going uphill and you have this impeller-shaped root, it will suck the water up itself. Just when the water hits it, it'll spin it and suck it, send it around the other side of the top of the roller coaster down the next hill, and then on the way up, it'll hit this impeller, which will suck it up. So theoretically, if you built this correctly, and then you'd have dynamos hooked to the impellers. So once he poured this water down this hill, and it goes down, up, around, you know, think of a roller coaster shaped like a racetrack with dips and ups, but the impellers pull it up where it loses inertia. And while it does that, using this special geometry shape like those roots, it's spinning a dynamo.
Yeah.
And now you free energy.
Exactly. It's kind of like that stick, whatever they call that piece of wood that is corkscrew.
Yeah, Bermuda Gorangi root. Yeah. Imagine that stick. So the water's coming up the hill, and then it hits that stick and spins it. But while that stick spins, it pulls the water. It sucks it. And that stick spinning is hooked to the dynamo. So that's your turning action for the electricity, right? And then it pulls it up. It's just like when you're on a roller coaster and you hit you're going to go down the drop. First, the chain grabs you, chink, 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 chink. You know, it pulls you up the roller coaster and then lets you go down the hill. Well, and then you hit the drop, and then as you go up the next hill, you hit another chain and it pulls you. Same idea, but instead of a chain, you have this geometrical impeller that's sucking the water, and the water hitting it is what makes it start spinning, and as it does, it sucks the water, and that's turning the dynamos.
That's
so
awesome.
If you work this correctly, that's free energy. You just got to get the water started.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many examples of that, and that's just something else that tells us here we are on the verge of something amazing, because they cannot keep the wraps on this stuff forever. And it's about ready to burst at the seams the way it is right now. So it's
Yeah.
truly an amazing time to be alive, as well as it sucks.
Yeah. So we'd love to come back. And Zach, Kyle, and Cammie, it's been a pleasure. I missed you guys. I've been waiting to come back a long time. So it's very nice to be back. Thanks for having us, or me anyway.
It's good to get to know you better here.
And you guys come hang out over on Iron Row Media with us on a Friday if you guys are free, or even where are you guys at?
Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yeah, we're on at 5 a.m. Eastern here.
That's like 11 in the morning my time. But that's actually doable for me on a Friday.
Yeah, Tuesdays or Fridays, man. You're more than welcome if you guys want to come and just talk, or if you got anything to share. Yeah, we're always looking for people to jump on in the morning. Nobody out here wants to. It's a little early for most people.
All right. Yeah, well, I'd love to. I'll send you my contact details in the chat here, and then you can get in touch with me.
Awesome, man. Sounds good.
Yeah, it would be great. I've been kind of out of it, like Bob will tell you. I've been doing all these germ movies and stuff, so I don't know. I've just sort of taken off in the world of Corona and all that crap, germ theory, and so I kind of got away from flat Earth and the ether and free energy, and have been doing this for 2.5 years. But I'm ready after this last movie I did to come back and do some more fun stuff.
Yep,
Yeah, I got
that's
some
awesome.
Tesla coil stuff that me and Bob have been working on. It's going to blow your mind.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, some cool stuff. So yeah, in case you guys wondered what happened to them, they have been putting out little teasers on their YouTube, but since YouTube is a bunch of schmucks and basically wants to delete anything they put out there because you can't do that, you can find the majority, well, all of their stuff really on Odyssey, for one, and BitChute is the other.
Yeah.
Yep, under Spacebusters, just search for it there. And I got to tell you, the last several videos have just been off the hook with information. Incredible stuff, Steve. I mean, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you had 3 or 4 PhDs under your belt.
Well, the end of germ theory actually made the number 9 on the monthly trending out of several million, which was good. But that's the one where that's put me in touch with Patrick Henningsen from he's the creator of 21st Century Wire, UK column host, TNT Radio, Dr. Sam and Mark Bailey, Tom Cowan, all my heroes, Christine Massey and Dawn Lester. Suddenly I'm in touch with all these people, and they're my new friends, and we're doing radio shows, and somehow I got launched into that movement with Dr. Kaufman and Amanda Vollmer and all these people where I'm just like, I didn't know you people knew who I was, and like they're saying this movie is the end of it all. They're saying this is it, that nobody can refute that. So I'm saying, wow. And Andy, I don't know if he's serious though, but he asked me if I'd like to make a book with him together on that last film, The End of Germ Theory, for the historical record and turn it into book form. And I said, I don't know how you do that, but if you want to, I'd love to. Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. Cause I mean, you have the perfect, narrator voice. It's authoritative. It's convincing. I mean, you do a fabulous job. You were made for that. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you're incredible, dude.
Awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just been weird for me. I've been launched into a world I didn't really think I'd be launched into or want to, but for some reason, the universe or what does that mean? The functionality?
Yep.
Functionality wants me to be doing more germs. So
yeah, well, we're all
I
called
think we
into.
all understand that feeling in one way or another. As a kid, never thought I'd be a humongous flat Earth spokesperson here or anything like that. And lo and behold, the calling happens.
Yeah, just go, as Bob said in Cammie, you don't know where you're going, but if you just, you don't swim against the current, or you drown, you relax and float downstream and see where it takes you.
Yep. Let the universe take you where it wants to, and just trust in that. And it's amazing. You will find, I mean, seriously, I swear there's somebody up there looking out for us. There's so no doubt in my mind about that. And, whether it's God or a guardian angel or what, there's definitely some sort of divine intervention that's been happening in our lives. in both good and bad ways, sort of. But I think the things that come into our lives as a matter of consequence are meant to teach us something. And, I try and find the message in that. So there you have it.
I'm the same. And, I don't know about the afterlife, but one belief I do hold, whether it's right or wrong, and it's from my own experience, I believe that if what you're doing is serving the creation, is servicing the creation in a good way, it comes back on you tenfold and becomes easier and easier, and things fall in your lap out of the sky. I think if what you're doing is evil or against the creation itself, I think things backfire and make it harder for you, and I've felt that myself. I feel like I've been just getting like one bone after another thrown to me because I'm doing good things. And that's one of the reasons I do think that these elites are going to lose, because I do think the worse you're doing, the harder it is to have, favors from the universe. And I don't think they're getting any favors, and I think we are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, their life is pretty much gone to crap.
Miserable. Yeah, it's miserable to be Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates right now, no matter how much cash they got.
Yep. Yeah. Just doesn't make a difference. There comes a point. So there you have it. I guess there is justice in the world sometimes, so that's a good thing. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to call that a show. Thank you so much, everybody. And we will be back on Sunday. We're definitely going to have Steve and Ross back in the very near future. They are two of our very favorite guests. And, we're just thrilled to have them and thrilled to be here with you guys. And life is good. So we will see you on Sunday. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside.